many people are experiencing right now in the Eastern Cape. And it's got to do with the fact that so many ambulances are out of commission, and even those that are still working are not working properly. They're not working at their optimum level because many of them don't have the basics that ambulances are required to be kitted out with. So we're talking no ECG machines, no stretchers, which one would think are just a basic necessity and aren't that expensive, right? Oxygen machines, basically everything that is needed to keep someone alive while they transit to the hospital. And that is the issue right now. And so we're going to be delving into that a little bit more. We'll speak to the Eastern Cape Department of Health about what they're doing about this dire situation. A little bit later on, we're connecting with the Office of the Auditor General of South Africa. And you know that we are getting an insight as time moves on into how this office works. And today we're looking specifically at the people behind it. Who is in the machine room, the engine room, so to speak, of the Auditor General, and what do they do there? So we're going to get an insight into that a little later on. And then this is a really important one, especially if you have children. I'm not sure, especially if you have babies, I'm not sure how strict you have been about ensuring they are vaccinated. It seems to me this call is just, it comes at a time when preventable diseases that have been wiped out, like polio, are starting to make a reappearance. Guys, how is this possible? That we can be living in a country where certain diseases have been wiped out altogether, or their rates are extremely low, and all of a sudden people are not vaccinating their children, or caregivers are not vaccinating their children, and consequently those children are starting to show the signs of diseases that were wiped out a long time ago. And I think one of the most worrying aspects of this story is that the age group of the children we're talking about here that is among the worst affected are babies. They're newborn babies. And so their chances of survival are severely compromised if you do not make sure your baby gets vaccinated. Right? So this is a serious thing, and I'd love to take your calls on this. We're going to have this conversation with the Deputy Director General of the Health Department at 10 minutes past 10. So I want you to call in at that time if you have any questions, because I know there are doubts out there. Post-COVID, people have become doubtful about vaccines, and there are all sorts of conspiracy theories that have sprung up about vaccines, particularly post-COVID. They've been in the air for a long time, but they've resurfaced, and consequently, this has had a serious effect on the rate of preventable diseases that is now rising significantly. It's rising by over a third. So we want to have that conversation with you, and we want you to be able to ask Dr. Nonhlanhla Ndlovu, who's speaking to us later, your questions on that issue. And then a bit later on, we're also connecting with Gift of the Givers. They're on standby to go to Nepal. I don't know if you've seen visuals of the floods coming out of there. Ginilwe was showing me a video this morning, and I was just appalled. It actually looked like a tsunami. It wasn't a tsunami, but the way that wave, that wave just crested over a building and flowed into the surrounding streets. And what was so sad was that there were people who were running. There were people in its path, and just moments before that pall of water came around the building, people were running for their lives. And it's quite clear that they wouldn't have made it. Because when I say it was a pall, it was a wall of water that came over that building. And you can see it's muddy water, as Ginilwe pointed out. So, I mean, many people wouldn't just have drowned, right? They would have been covered by mud as well. And I think it's just awful. But we're going to speak to Dr. Suleiman because there is a South African family that has alerted him to the fact that a family member of theirs is missing. We want to find out what's happened to her and other South Africans on the ground as well. Later on, after 10:30, we're talking about the underfunding of public schools. And this has also happened in the Eastern Cape. And the Eastern Cape High Court simply came out last week and it said what you did is unconstitutional. It said this to the Education Department. And they'd cut funding by over a third. And that's had a material effect on what schools are able to do with their money. So they can't employ teachers, they're under-resourced and so forth. And it's a pity that it took a court to tell them that between the year 2023 and 24, what they did was wrong. and the schools actually need that money to survive. So we're chatting about that after 10:30. And then last of all, what we're going to look at is the opening of the Suez Canal. And we know that, the operations around the Red Sea have begun again after quite some time. And with all the political uncertainty and the security uncertainty around that area, many ships were actually moving around the Cape of Good Hope to get there, right? And I wonder, although it seems like it's a slow process, but I wonder what it's going to mean for us as South Africa that that port is now, or that channel, I should say, is open again for transport, and essentially it may have an effect on the fact that we were ramping up our facilities in that regard. So we're going to chat to an analyst about that a little later on. 9:16. Let's take a call. Charlie in Koffiefontein was first to it this morning. Good morning to you, Charlie. Hi.
I wanted to raise the issue which was published at Times Live yesterday about the visa scam that the SIU uncovered. So yes. Now, yes, the foreigners are using the visa scam to come to South Africa. They're using fake documents, first of all, from institutions which do not exist.
Yes.
And then you get people in Home Affairs who facilitate the application via social media, maybe WhatsApp and whatnot, not even at the offices.
Yes.
And then the foreigners, they don't pay the corrupt individual themselves. They pay their spouse or someone in the family member, either through e-wallet or, cash sent or whatever.
Right. So it's more difficult to detect.
Yes. Or they use maybe dummy phones or just go and buy a SIM card and that. But then SIU found it out. And then also, these people who are coming to the country illegal, when they are the study visas, they expire. They maybe go and apply for a temporary one, or they don't apply at all. But then what happens with these people who are in the country? They start opening businesses, even though they are in the company, they are in the country illegally. Start opening businesses not that are even registered with the correct authorities, and then they make a killing out of it.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, it's disturbing. It's very disturbing, Charlie. And it's abuse. It's an abuse of the system.
Yes. This is why I'm always supported Aramutu already said that we should remove ourselves from the 1951 UN Refugee Convention, and then when we re-enter with our own demands or our own set of rules. So that because now we know that Leon Scriber is not taking any responsibility for it, and like you've mentioned last time, he's totally refusing to go into your show. He's busy just. Oh,
it's not. Oh, yes, Leon Schreiber. Yes, you're right.
Yes.
Are you saying that the former Home Affairs Minister said we should leave that convention?
Yes, and re-enter with our own demands.
I wonder how easy it'll be to do that, Charlie.
And he also said that all visas which have been issued from 1994 have to be reinvestigated, because we've got a lot of people in this country who don't deserve to be in this country.
Yeah.
But that one of the withdrawing from the UN 1951 UN Convention, Refugee Convention, I support it fully.
Okay.
We withdraw. We don't allow any asylum seekers or refugees in the country anymore until we get our borders in control, until all those ones in the departments are accountable like Home Affairs officials, and then we specify our demands when we say we go there. And then we say we are going to apply the first rule, the first safest country rule, because it's very disturbing that someone from Ethiopia or Somalia leaves Kenya, Tanzania, or Zambia, and all these other countries and come to South Africa.
Okay,
people
Charlie,
from
thank
Pakistan
you.
And yes.
No, thank you for that. I don't know how easy it would be to rejoin after you've pulled out of that and make demands on it. The UN is not going to change a convention because of one country's demands, right? So we probably break. We'll chat more when we come back.
Call SAFM now on 086 000 2032.
I lied. There was no ad break. All right. Let's take a call from David in Durban. Good morning to you, David. You want to talk about ambulances?
Good morning, JJ. Yes, I think I have a very novel solution to addressing the despicable nature of our state institutions, including, the hospitals, the schools, and transport, and so on. I
Okay.
believe that all members of elected office must be compelled. In fact, one of the job criteria should be that they need to be using these state institutions, and they must be excluded from using public, rather private hospitals and so on. And you see how quick we'll have a turnaround. Why not other parts of the world? I mean, the Queen of England and her grandchildren and her children had their babies in the NHS, the state hospitals. So why can't they re-implement the very same thing? Yeah, it must be a criteria for them to use state institutions. They can't be we can't have a two-tier system, which presently is the case.
I agree with you, David, in that, I think, and the same should probably apply to schools and everything else,
Absolutely.
And security, all the things that
Absolutely.
people in positions of power are able to afford, right? But I'm also wondering how many people would get into politics and would want to become members of parliament and ministers.
The very sincere ones.
Yes,
The very sincere
yes,
ones.
true.
Yeah.
David, I don't know legally whether one could pull that off, but I like the idea, certainly.
Yeah,
Thanks very much for your call. Tsukolo in Harrismith is on the line to us. Tsukolo, hi, you want to talk about ambulance attacks, Tsukolo?
My sister, good morning.
Morning.
Yeah, no, I don't know I don't know where can I start on this thing. But the only thing that I can think, our government, really, they must do something. They must change the law now. More especially when you committing the wrong thing, crime or killing or something. I don't understand if now they're gonna attack people who assisting people in the health care. Really, I lost my. I don't know what must I say. Our people, where are we going as blacks? Because this thing is only happening on the blacks, where the blacks are. Where are we going? Really, we are in trouble. Why these people must they to attack the people who are helping our community? What is that?
Yeah, no, I would say, where are we going as South Africans, right?
Where are we going?
Yeah.
We don't have the clue. We don't know where we are. We are really, you see, this democracy. Really, we took this democracy in the wrong way. Now it's killing us again. So really, our government must do something on it, because they know they can commit something wrong. Then they're gonna get caught, and after that they are out on bail. They're gonna be again outside. You understand? That is why you see these people, they are committing this kind of a crime, because they know they're gonna be there. Then they get bail, they are out again.
Yeah, if they get arrested, Tsukolo, if they get arrested, right, in the first place.
Yeah. No. Don't thanks. But anyway,
Thank you.
I don't know. Really, I don't know where we go. Thanks, John. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Tsukolo. You too. I don't know. I worry. I was listening to Professor Ari Cetus on the reality check this morning, and what he said about us as civil society and our loyalty to ourselves in terms of the kind of society we want to see and the kind of society we want to build. Right? Poverty is not a reason for violent crime. Right? There are places in the world with very high poverty rates that are also developing countries that don't have the same amount of crime that we do. And I wonder why, when paramedics come into your area, you'd want to attack them or kill them. I can't really get my head around that. What would persuade you that somebody who's coming into your community to help you deserves to be injured or killed or stolen from? And it tells me that we're at a place in this country where we're facing a time in our country where if we were to look ourselves in the mirror as a nation, some parts of what we do we'd be very ashamed of, right? And I don't think we want to come to terms with that. I don't know if we're ready to come to terms with that as South Africans. Let's take a call from Kaya in Ngobo. Kaya, good morning to you.
Yes.
I believe there's a taxi strike in the town.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Yes, correctly. There's a taxi strike, I think, started on Monday. Actually, before that, there was a community strike against the municipal manager. Now there's a taxi strike. These protests are actually blocking kids who want to go to school. I mean, kids are not accessing school now for like 2 weeks now. There's kids who need to prepare for trial exams, for the final exams, doing grade 12 and all that. They're being blocked from going to school. There's kids now at home who can go to school. I don't know why the municipality is not solving the issues that people are having so that our kids can go to school. I mean, people now need to access hospitals, get medication. They can't do that. Businesses are closed. So I don't know. I don't know why people, when they protest, the police allow them to infringe on the rights of other people, because now they're killing the future of kids. They're literally killing people. If people can access basic services, hospitals, what's going to happen? Why are they allowing lawlessness to just go unabated? No intervention is being done. I don't know if it's because we're in a rural area, that's why they don't care, or anything like that. I don't know. Can you please get someone, maybe the station commander or the municipal people, to come and please explain why are we suffering because people are striking? I don't have a problem with people who want to protest. It's their right to do that. Right, yes. But we also have rights. Yeah. We also have rights. We need to access services.
No, that's true. And again, we misunderstand our rights when it comes to the rights of other people, when it comes to a protest.
It can be that if I have a problem, I can just go and block the road there so that we can go anywhere.
Yes.
It's not right. It's unacceptable. Please, can we get an intervention on this? Please.
Okay,
can you imagine 2 weeks, kids not going to school for 2 weeks?
I hear you. And the kids are coming up for, what do they call, prelims? Prelims
now. Yes, prelim is coming up.
That's right.
It's not right.
No, okay, guys.
Kids now have kids at home doing nothing when they should be at school.
We'll find out about that for you, Kai. We'll try and follow up on that, if not later today, in the first hour of our show tomorrow. All right, let's take a call from Younger in Vanderbijl. Quick one from you, Younger, on ambulances in the Eastern Cape.
Yes, Joanne. But before I make my point about ambulances, this idea of that politicians must use public hospitals and stuff. For me, it's a short-minded idea, because now we are saying people who can afford must go to the public sector and take beds, for people that cannot afford. I think morally it is not correct. Those who can afford to go to the private hospital,
but Younger,
for those who cannot afford.
I think, look, the public sector should be for everyone. And the only reason the private sector is thriving the way it is because the public sector is not up to scratch, and there are moneyed people in the country who can actually afford the private sector medical aid and hospitals. But having said that, I mean, if we had a functional public service, we could all go there, right?
Yes.
Or we should all go there by rights, including politicians.
But for now it is not practical.
Okay.
Coming to the Eastern Cape, sometimes my sister, we need to, these officials, we need to hold them accountable. Like, I mean, the MEC can do much, and it is not about you go to the station,
Younger, I'm losing you. I'm sorry, I have a bit of a bad line to you. Sorry about that, Younger.
Oh, okay.
But okay, let's try and get you back on the line, and maybe we'll do that when we've actually got the Eastern Cape Health Department on, so that you can make your point then to our guest who's on the line to us. So hang 10 there. But thank you for flagging this issue with us, because we certainly need an intervention, and we need to hold officials to account who are not performing at that level. All right, that brings us to 9:30 on the Daily Discourse, and that means Anne Musa is standing by with your latest headlines.
Good morning. Thanks, Joanne. In the headlines, Labour Federation, COSATU, says the Democratic Alliance is likely to succeed in its bid at the Constitutional Court today to have the Finance Minister's power to increase VAT declared unconstitutional. DA leader Jordan Hill-Lewis says his party's priority after successful local government election will be to fix the eThekwini Metro's water problems. Lewis held an election meeting in Mhlanga last night, and closing arguments are due to be heard in the U.S. trial of a mother charged with murdering her 3 young children. I'll have details on these and other stories at 10.
The Daily Discourse on SAFM, weekday mornings from 9 to 12.
Just after 9:30 on the Daily Discourse, and off air, Zalma and I were having a conversation about certain clinics that do work, right? And if you've got a clinic in your area that is working, or you've got a hospital in your area that is working, tell us a bit about it. And I'm just asking this because, the question has come up of whether our politicians should be using the public health service. And Zalma was making the point that if they were to use the public service, they would have a sense of what it's like to go to a public clinic or a public hospital, and what kind of service you get there, right? And I think what sometimes happens is that politicians become so far removed from the communities they're serving and the facilities in those areas that they don't know what the daily experience is like of an elderly woman, for example, an elderly lady going and sitting in a queue for hours and hours. They can't find her file when she gets to the front. She doesn't get decent treatment. She has to queue for another line to get medication. And then she's got to get herself home, often in the dark, after an entire day of waiting. But Zoma was mentioning to me that there are facilities that work, and she was giving me the example of the Protea Glen Clinic. Right, and perhaps some of you are familiar with that clinic and the work it does. And she was mentioning that because there are people who understand the health system, how it ought to work, and they have respect for the people who are coming to that clinic, it works. So share your experiences with me, if you have any, of clinics that do work, and what is different about them. What is being done differently? Are they being run differently? Is it the leadership that makes a difference? Is it the dedication of the healthcare staff that makes a difference? Talk to me about that. I want to hear about oases, shall we call them, oases of progress and development and respect for our people when it comes to healthcare. Give me a call on that if you'd like, on 086 000 2032. Let's take a call from Trapi in PE on ambulances. Trapi, good morning.
Good morning, Joan. My sister, thanks very much for you to be back.
Hey. Pleasure. Good to be back.
Yes. When you talk about this issue of PE Tebeka in connection with health service, talk about ambulances, it's just a mess. My brother, I think last week, had a very, very serious, health condition whereby I phoned the ambulances. They had to move to police station in order to get first aid, equipment. They don't have those things. In the very first place, I was very disturbed when the Premier Mabuyan elected that lady to be a minister of health. I just scratched my head. I said, I doubt that there's going to be any delivery here. Another caller, I think it was yesterday from PE, saying that these people, they are just there to get their salary at the end of the month. They don't care about, society. Even Mtswaledi himself, it breaks my heart to always talk about NHI, to say all people, there should be no private clinic and all that. People have to get the same health service. How can you get the same health service in such a poor condition of government?
Fair enough, Trapi.
It's just a joke.
Question. It's an important question that you're asking.
Even if you talk about Mabuyan is just, should I say, a puppet that is sitting there pumping his stomach and his cronies. They are just doing nothing. For you start from schooling, education. Children are suffering to get to school. You go to health service. It's just a mess. Come to the social township. This is a mess. Eastern Cape is just worse of any other province in this country. I don't know who can save us from this Mabuyane and all his cronies. They are just failures. Thank you, Mama.
Rapi, thank you. Thank you for sharing your feelings with this issue on us. I mean, I think We're hearing the frustrations of our listeners this morning. This is part of why we're having the conversation, and you are welcome to comment on this as we speak to our next guest. Our studio line 086 000 2032, our WhatsApp line 0614 104 107. But the Daily Maverick has also been focusing on this very strongly. It's done a detailed expose on what it says is widespread disarray within the fleet of ambulances in the Eastern Cape. And apparently there are ambulances in use, although many of them can't be used because they need to be repaired. Others are parked at public facilities, but they can't be used because they lack important equipment. And it sounds like the emergency services staff are really feeling deeply demoralized by what is going on the ground. We know they've been attacked in the past as well. So I want to first hear from Acting HOD at the Eastern Cape Health Department, Dr. Mtandeni Xamlashe, to find out what is going on there. Dr. Xamlashe, good morning and thank you for your time on the Daily Discourse. Is it true that out of 350 ambulances, only 139 are working and can be used for emergencies?
Good morning, Joanne, and good morning to your listeners. And again, thank you for this opportunity to talk to our communities through your radio. We truly appreciate it. Joanne, it is true. And I think our starting point must be that the department really has never been, has always been transparent about challenges facing our EMS. And the figures regarding these grounded ambulances, the fleet pressures, maintenance challenges that they've just mentioned, and the interventions that are underway were provided by the Department of Health. And there is no better person to make an assessment than the end user of our service. So we will respect their opinion. And
it's not their opinion, to be fair, Dr. Xamlashe, it's their experience.
It's the experience,
yes.
I say. It's the experience of our citizens and the experience of our frontline workers. We respect those as a true reflection of the state of affairs. But
So,
of course,
yes.
we do acknowledge that, look, we are intervening and we are making amends in order to repair and restore this service to normality. It's a complex process, but it's something that we are busy with on a daily basis at the Department of Health.
But can you tell me why, according to the Daily Maverick, there are more than 200 ambulances out of service at the moment?
Yes, Joanne, there are a number of factors. One of them is that Eastern Cape is quite unique in many respects. Our fleet of ambulances, as you're saying, the total is almost 235. That's not really an optimal number, but definitely not a bad number. Our roads in Eastern Cape are bad. We pick citizens and communities from remote areas, from Willowmore on gravel road, 300 kilometers from the point where they're going to be giving a service. So we're picking people from Bangor or the coastal there, Tafalofa. Those roads are terrible to any ordinary car, even a 4x4. So there's a lot that needs to be done in order to make sure that our fleet availability is high. So we are working with other departments, transport and roads, to make sure we respond comprehensively to the challenge. We can add 1,000 more ambulances, but until we deal with all other factors that affect their availability, we're not going to be at our own best. So it's a matter that's broader, but we are obviously making every effort to pick every citizen that is in distress and make sure that we're able to save every life that makes a call. And we continue to do that, despite all the challenges that are frustrating our own frontline workers and our citizens.
But okay, so let's put aside the issue of roads for a moment, because I sympathise with the fact that you are operating those ambulances on roads that have not been properly tarred and so forth, and certainly I think the collaboration between you and the transport department needs to be far greater in regard to getting these roads tarred urgently. But is it true that even among the ambulances in service, many can't actually be used because they're missing important equipment like stretchers, oxygen tanks, ECG machines and the like?
Certainly. As I say, it comes from our frontline workers. It's not something we deny. Hence, we're now investing 10 million rand to actually buy new equipment, that is used by the frontline workers and re-equipping the existing fleet. We've got that money. That procurement is underway. And we really respect and we understand that they continue to work under those circumstances with ambulances that are under-resourced. We are not denying that. But ours is to make sure we respond, we support them, we buy the equipment as we are doing right now. But, Joanne, I also want to raise another element here, which often we miss as both as service providers and as citizens. The emergency medical services, it's not just about a vehicle and an oxygen tank. There's a human being behind who's skilled, who needs to be well equipped, who needs to be mentally supported, who deals with these traumatic experiences on a daily basis. I would love that we appreciate that it's beyond just a vehicle. EMS
absolutely.
is not just a vehicle.
No, I completely agree with you, and I want you to hold that thought because we're going to expand on that in just a moment. Just please stay with us, Dr. Tlamlashe. We're going to take a short break. We'll continue the conversation when we come back.
Before there was the SAfm You Know Today, there was the English service, there was Radio South Africa, Radio South Africa, and there was a country going through extraordinary change.
Hello. Good morning, Mr. Raphael.
From the darkness of apartheid,
I have to inform honourable members.
through the states of emergency,
Earlier, it was reported an explosion had occurred at an ESCOM,
through the release of Nelson Mandela,
Comrades and fellow South Africans, I greet you all.
through the birth of a democratic South Africa.
As we know, elections do not create change, they create only the opportunity for change.
The conversations continued, and in 1995, a new SAfm emerged. A new country, a new voice, a new chapter. This August, SAfm looks back at the journey that brought us here. The voices, the moments, the people, the history. 90 years of conversation, a nation story, our shared future. SAfm turns 90 from 1 August. SAfm, the conversation continues. Every leader has a story before the title. This Friday on the Daily Discourse, SABC Group CEO Nomsa Chabeli goes beyond the boardroom to meet a woman leading one of Africa's most recognizable mobility businesses. Ramasela Ganda, Group CEO of Zeda Limited, the company behind Avis and Budget in South Africa and across 10 other countries in sub-Saharan Africa. But this isn't a conversation about cars. It's about leadership, the choices, the sacrifices, the woman behind the title, and the legacy she is building. Her leadership story. Nomsa Chabeli in conversation with Ramasela Ganda. Friday the 28th of August, only on SAfm. Still leading the conversations that move us. You are listening to Joanne Joseph on SAfm.
Almost 9:45 on the Daily Discourse. We're continuing our conversation with Dr. Mthandeni Tlamlashe, acting HOD at the Eastern Cape Health Department. Dr. Tlamlashe, thank you for staying with us. Before we get into the issue of paramedics, which is absolutely of paramount importance, I think many people are listening to our conversation and they're wondering a couple of things. If the distances are so great in the Eastern Cape, what has stopped you over the years from building more clinics or hospitals in that area so they're easier to access and the ambulances themselves have shorter distances to traverse?
Joanne, the fact is that is not really a problem. We have got 773 clinics in Eastern Cape. No other province in the country matches that number. We've got 65 hospitals. I understand the problem is not really that. That is in place. The problem is the surging demand for emergency services. At this point, Joanne, I would also want to raise an uncomfortable fact about our situation now that the issues of fleet are acknowledged as a problem and being sorted. There is an element of misuse, unfortunately, and it's uncomfortable to talk about. It's a fact, 70% of the calls that we respond to in Eastern Cape, 70%, are non-emergency calls. We recognize the plight and understanding of people that my mother has got general body pains and she can't eat and she can't get up the bed, and they call an ambulance. And in strict terms, that's not an emergency. It's something that can be dealt with at a local clinic. You are very correct. We want to encourage citizens to reduce those non-urgent calls for emergencies. It put more strain on an already strained system or a service, which is EMS. 70%, only 30% of the calls are real emergencies in Eastern Cape, But I think that's a discussion for another day.
Yeah,
for
yes,
now,
it certainly is, because it
that's
sounds a little bit like you're deflecting here, Dr. Tamlashe. I think you're making a good point, but that's not the core reason for our discussion today.
Yeah.
It's because you've not been able to either maintain or develop a fleet that is fit for use in your province. Now, you've now put 10 million into it. What is that going to give the province in terms of ambulances and access to paramedics?
Our objective is to get all the 235 units available, to be available and to be able to render the services to the communities. That's what we're aiming for.
So you're going to repair. You're going to repair the broken ambulances, basically.
Yeah. Over and above that, the old fleet is being replaced from this month of August up to February. We're putting in an extra 194 new ambulances into the system. 20 have already been deployed to areas like Sarapatman and even Kabecha. I think one of your callers was complaining. Those areas like Sarapatman, 20 have been deployed as I'm talking to you. In the next month, we're putting in 27, the other month 34. But by February 2027, 194 new ambulances have been confirmed that are going to be put in the fleet, basically replacing, not necessarily, Johann, I'm not going to lie, we're not expanding the fleet, more than replacing, so that the availability could be much higher than what it is right now.
All right. I'm a bit up against the clock here, Dr. Tamlashe, so I just want to ask you, in terms of the personnel who are servicing those ambulances and the people, the EMS workers, you mentioned they're working under severely difficult conditions. We know they don't have the right uniforms, they don't have the right equipment, they're poorly paid, and many of them are leaving the country because of it. They're going overseas to work. How will you ensure that you can keep your people?
Look, retention of highly skilled professionals in the whole world is a problem, not only for Eastern Cape. All highly skilled and good professionals, be they doctors and otherwise, are going global. That is a problem. On one hand, we are happy that we're producing them, but we are unhappy that we cannot retain them to actually offer the service to the country. So we are doing the best we can. The first thing is the working conditions, and we have described. We have to make sure that the working conditions are very friendly. Eastern Cape is going to be the first province in the country to establish a dedicated wellness center for EMS and forensic pathology personnel to deal with the issues of psychology and trauma which they are exposed to. So therefore, we need to attend to their welfare, their mental state and everything. So that's one of the things we're trying to do to improve the working conditions. As I say, it's going to be the first one in the country. We hope such initiatives will make the working environment more attractive, and we have a retention rate that's going to be much higher than what it is. Issues of salary are very difficult. We're competing with dollar-based economies across the world. But at the same time, as a country, we cannot really force people to stay in the country, but we'll do the best we can to make sure we deal with the basic issues that they are actually expecting us to deal with, so that we can retain a reasonable number of them to continue to service our communities. It's a global problem. It's a bigger problem. People have got rights to work where they want to or they choose to work.
Let me take a couple of calls from our listeners. And Younger, I'm going to take you first. Please keep it very, very short because we're out of time here.
Oh, okay. No, Doc. Mine is simple. The chain of command, to say if a certain hospital has this amount of fleet that is not working, how does it work? Because I think sometimes we are let down, by officials, who don't report these issues. So the chain of command, how does it work, Doc? I'll listen on the radio.
Yes, Dr. Tamlashe, quick one, please.
Yeah, I think that relates to maybe bureaucratic issues as to who to report what. We have numbers. There's number one, when you want to an ambulance, there's a number that if you're on a mobile, it's 112. If you are on a desktop phone, it's 10177. I think we all know. However, if you are not winning in those areas, we have numbers available for people to call. Even social media platforms in the Department of Health, you can go in there and plug in, and we respond very swiftly, as the Department of Health, if you want to escalate a particular problem. Our numbers are generally available in the public, but the department website has got a social media platform you can use. You can use WhatsApp call. They are there on the line. So that area is an area where that one. But if there's a particular problem, you're witnessing an abuse of an ambulance, for example, if you see it doing a wrong thing it shouldn't be doing, report it to the nearest police station. This is an emergency service, not just a health service. So police will always assist us in those areas. So we must understand that we would love to be accountable community and do the right thing. And we want to solve the problems together.
All right.
But
well,
Joanne,
yes.
we're also collaborating with private health ambulances.
Okay.
When you see private health ambulances coming to pick you up, it's not a sign of failure of the public health service. We're collaborating for an emergency must be the nearest person who can intervene in a situation. So we do work with private ambulance providers to assist us in instances where we may not be able to respond promptly or on the prescribed turnaround time.
Thank you so much for speaking to us, Dr. Mthandeni Xamilashe, Acting HOD in the Eastern Cape Health Department. Will be keeping a close eye on developments in that province.
In case you missed it,
Herbert Mashaba, he's the last one to talk. He promised 2 years ago, I'm going to spend my money, I'll get those people out of Lily Mine. Where are they? They're still there.
Mashaba, when you hear something like that, I mean, like I said, you could be sitting on an island somewhere, but you take this criticism, you must have a very thick skin, and how do you respond to something like that?
Well, I'm used to people who are drunk calling radio stations, and I mean, you can hear this person is not sober.
That was Nightfall with John Gericke. SAfm.
12 official languages, from isiZulu and isiXhosa, Setswana and Sesotho, Seswati and isiNdebele, Tshivenda, Sepedi, Xitsonga, to Afrikaans and English. Every voice carries part of the nation's story.
While today's youth does not directly experience the challenges faced by the youth of 1976, it remains our history and therefore relevant to us. History is not something that should be forgotten. It is something to learn from, so we don't repeat the same mistakes of the past.
This is what we are becoming. SAfm, leading the conversations that move us. The Daily Discourse, more than talk, real understanding.
Have you ever wondered how government is spending public money, which is your money? In the next few weeks, we're talking to the Auditor General of South Africa, a Chapter 9 institution established to support the country's democracy. This year, this important institution celebrates 115 years of public auditing and providing illuminating insights for a better South Africa. We'll take you on a journey to understand their work and how it impacts you, the citizen. Join this important conversation brought to you by the AGSA.
This program is brought to you by SABC Education in partnership with the Auditor General South Africa.
Welcome back to another chance to get to know the Auditor General of South Africa, our country's National Audit Office. Following on from last week's session as to what the AGSA is, today we're looking at the people behind the institution and their processes to get a look inside the organisation. Taking us behind the scenes today is AGSA Head of Portfolio, Sharon Adams. Ms. Adams, good morning to you and welcome to the Daily Discourse. As you go about the important work of auditing government departments, you require a unique set of tools to carry out your work, I understand. Why is the use of digital technology so important to your environment?
Good morning, Joanne, and good morning to the listeners. And thank you so much for this opportunity to share more about what our office does. So in the digital technology, we've got two business units. The one which we call the Digital Technology Office, that is very crucial in providing us as auditors, making sure we've got the right tools to do our work efficiently. It plays an extremely huge role in reducing manual inputs in terms of time and cost, and decrease the risk of errors creeping in when handling things manually. So any manual intervention, as you know, Joanne, is prone to error. It also helps us monitor and track progress of the audits and solve disputes. So it gives us progress on a real-time basis. The audit software program significantly boosts our productivity and elevates our quality and reinforces the AGSA position as a leader in the sector. The other office, which is the Digital Transformation Office, helps us in our reporting by setting up channels and platforms that allows us to reach a lot more people and work closely with our communication unit to extend the scope of our communication on these platforms of our public websites. And as a result of this office will continue to work to develop and deploy robotics to create a more efficient process for finance, for our people, and audit support. And if I can give you maybe just one quick practical example on the robotic side. So we do timesheets as auditors where we record our time, that revenue is billed. So in the past, we used to do it via Excel spreadsheet. But now we make use of robotics that basically captures all of that information and gives us the data at one glance.
All right. That really sounds fantastic. Tell me, what does risk management involve, Ms. Adams?
The risk management portfolio, they consist of 3 key business units that manages the risk and the ethics and the performance while assuring that we comply with the regulatory standards. They do this by scanning both the internal and the external environment for what matters and what could influence the way that we do our work. It's like they go in advance just to make sure they do appropriate environmental scanning. By this way, we can report whether we are financially sustainable or whether we have the right people to fulfill this important strategy that we're driving to make an impact on the lives of our citizens.
Right.
So as a result, this has a great impact in the way we do our work, whether we are seen as a supreme audit institution that is reliable and credible. The risk management portfolio not only identifies the risk, but it also poses solutions to retain public confidence in terms of the work that we do as the AGSA. So they identify the risk, making sure we've got the risk mitigations then to deal with the risk that we've identified.
Tell me, where does the finance portfolio fit in?
The finance portfolio, I think, very crucial portfolio within the AGSA, because as AGSA, we are self-funding. We basically generate our revenue through the work that we do. And within the finance portfolio, we've got 2 business units in the finance portfolio that are very crucial. The one is the legal and financial independence, which means the finance unit that must ensure that the AGSA is financially sustainable by managing the way we collect our money and the way we spend our money. The AGSA's own revenue for the year 2024 was 5.3 billion, which we basically used to pay the staff, rentals of the property and pay for the property, for any digital enhancement and many other overheads. So that's in a nutshell what the finance portfolio do and where they fit in.
And accuracy research and the facts are, of course, really important in building up a picture of how public funds are being used in South Africa. How important is the AGSA to bringing that clarity to the country?
Yeah. So critically important from the AGSA in bringing that clarity in the country. So in terms of the work that we do, we are independent assurance provider, where we basically make sure that the work that we do, through the audit work that we do, that we give an opinion on the financial statements, on the compliance to laws and regulations, also when it comes to the performance information, and clearly articulate what are the root causes. By this way, we make sure that public funds are used for the intended purpose by enabling accountability and providing the appropriate insights from the audit work that we do. And this reporting we do to Parliament, to the legislature, and to council, and this will assist them how can they hold government accountable. A very interesting fact that we've got over 4,000 employees that generate these interests for you, the citizens, to enable to hold government accountable based on the audit data that we produce. And on a yearly basis, all departments, entities, municipalities have to table their annual reports. And included in this annual report is our audit report.
Fascinating speaking to Sharon Adams. Thank you so much for your insight into the workings of the AGSA. This special broadcast was brought to you by the Auditor General of South Africa, celebrating 115 years of public auditing to build public confidence. Be sure to join the conversation next week as we tackle yet another interesting topic and learn more about the AGSA.
This program was brought to you by SABC Education in partnership with the Auditor General South Africa.
10 o'clock on the Daily Discourse. Here's Anne Musa with your latest news.
In our top stories, COSATU predicts DA victory in VAT court battle and outcry over conditions at Kolini Special School. Good morning. Labour Federation COSATU says the Democratic Alliance is likely to succeed in its bid at the Constitutional Court today to have the Finance Minister's power to increase VAT declared unconstitutional. The party has argued that tax rates should be decided by Parliament, not by ministerial proclamation. In election-related news, DA leader Jordan Hill-Lewis says his party's priority after successful local government election will be to fix the eThekwini Metro's water problems. Hill-Lewis held an election meeting in Umhlanga last night. He says 65% of the city's bulk water is currently lost and that the city has 13,000 water leaks. The DA leader has told the meeting that the party will restore integrity in the running of the city by having all senior officials undergo lifestyle audits.
When you've got so many problems, you've got to focus. He's going to focus on the water infrastructure, which is most in crisis. That is going to be his absolute day and night obsession as the mayor of Durban. And it's important that people know that, because that's going to entail some tough choices. It's going to entail some prioritization and a lot of hard work and focus. But that is what people are going to get. They're going to get a team of people who bring integrity back to Durban government.
Serious concerns have been raised about the safety and well-being of learners at Kolini Special School in the Northwest, with parents calling for urgent intervention by the Provincial Department of Education. The concerns stem from allegations of severe bullying, delays in accessing medical care, poor living conditions and reports of sexual assault. Parents say they are particularly alarmed by claims that a rented house used to accommodate special needs learners has no caregivers or supervisors on site. The Durban Magistrates Court is expected to make a ruling in the bail application of two Congolese nationals arrested for allegedly trying to gain unauthorized access to the 46th SADC summit in Durban earlier this month. They face charges including fraud, impersonating and contravening the Safety at Sports and Recreation Events Act. The court heard that the accused were part of a delegation accompanying the DRC's Minister of National Defence and Veteran Affairs who attended the summit. Recapping the top story, Labour Federation COSATU says the Democratic Alliance is likely to succeed in its bid at the Constitutional Court today to have the Finance Minister's power to increase VAT declared unconstitutional. For SAFM News, I'm Anne Musa.
From the archive to the moment, from memory to today, this is SAFM at 90. Looking for exclusive content, live events, and special broadcasts like the Madlanga Commission? Then connect to the all-new SAFM Connect stream. The Madlanga Commission, live and uninterrupted from 9:30 Monday to Friday. SAFM Connect brings you more of the conversations that matter. Listen anytime, anywhere by visiting connect.safm.co.za or stream directly on SABC Plus at sabc-plus.com. SAFM Connect. More conversations, more access. There's much more coming. In case you missed it,
in 2002, 2003, he took out the lyric of the song and he made us cry poems.
Sounds familiar, eh?
Today I'm grateful because we didn't commit crime, we were not stealing, we were just good people that were listening to reggae but not knowing that we were learning something to stay away from trouble.
That is amazing, Sapi. That's a great story. Thank you for sharing so much.
And also, Sapi, just before you go, this is a wild stab in the dark, right? And he used to speak quite slowly because he used to smoke the herb, didn't he? Was he smoking the herb?
He was.
That was the Alternative Breakfast. 90 years of conversations, recaptured, relived, and projected. SAfm.
Hello South Africa, my name is Sirifatso Cheney from Mahikeng in the Northwest Province. Congratulations to SAfm on an incredible 90 years. Thank you for being a station that has informed, educated and inspired generations of listeners. Your commitment to an incredible journalism and meaningful conversations continues to make a difference in our country. Wishing the entire SAfm family many more years of excellence.
From the voices that shaped our past to the conversations defining our future, SAfm celebrates 90 years. The Daily Discourse on SAfm with Joanne Joseph, unpacking the issues that matter. The Daily Discourse on SAfm, weekday mornings from 9 to 12.
6 minutes past 10, we are into the second hour of the Daily Discourse. Thank you for joining us. I'm Joanne Joseph, and it's great to be with you as always after a little bit of a break. But let me tell you what we're talking about in this hour, and let me remind you that our studio line remains open because I'm sure you'd love to make a comment or perhaps ask a question on this issue. Our studio line is 086 000 2032, our WhatsApp line 0614 104 107. And we're talking about the issue of vaccinations. The number of declining vaccinations is really worrying. The health department is very worried about it. It certainly means that these diseases that we considered preventable in the last few years are now starting to actually become diseases that are going to proliferate among our population, especially among children. So we're going to have that discussion with the health department in a moment. Then we're also going to connect with Dr. Imtiaz Suleiman from Gift of the Givers about the Nepalese floods. His team is on standby to go to Nepal, and SABC News has just broken this, telling us the 6 South Africans missing in the Nepal floods are really of concern right now to the country, right? 600 tourists in general remain unaccounted for, according to the Nepalese Tourism Board, but we know 6 of those are South Africans. That's what we're hearing right now. So we're going to connect with him and just find out exactly what will happen, whether they will go to the country to offer some aid there. And after that, we're speaking about the issue of underfunding in public schools in the Eastern Cape and what effect that has had on many of the public schools there. I also want to quickly just listen to some of our voice notes and respond to your messages on the voice note line. On the issue of ambulances, which we spoke about earlier, the national norm for ambulances is 1 ambulance per 10,000 population. How far is the department in reaching that national norm, looking at the number of ambulances that are operational? What about the shortage of staff to work in these ambulances, including advanced life support paramedics and managers to oversee these ambulances and staff? What is the department doing about that? Such a pertinent question, and I'm sorry that we didn't get to your question a bit earlier, but we know that there are more ambulances being procured and that government is in talks with private companies as well to enhance that service in the Eastern Cape. Let's listen to one of your voice notes on this.
JJ, welcome back. This is Ngonde in Cape Town. I must confirm, I was born, bred, peanut buttered in Port Elizabeth, now Quebec. I understand 1.5 million people reside in Quebec and Kariega, previously called Udnik. Now, that area needs about 150 ambulances for that population. And apparently, only one that is fully functioning is working. It reminds me of my CVA days in 2020 when I stroke. My sister hired a private ambulance If I was late by 5 hours to be attended, I would have been toast by now. JJ, good morning.
And I think that's the reality for so many of our compatriots who are in a similar situation. Keep those messages coming and we will keep having the discussions. Right, moving towards 10 minutes past 10 here on the Daily Discourse. And there is a really worrying trend of people failing to vaccinate their children. The health department's now calling for urgent action to get those vaccination rates up to prevent children dying of preventable diseases. That's how serious it is. Let's speak to Dr. Nonhlanhla Ndlovu, who's Deputy Director General, HIV, AIDS, TB and MCWH at the National Health Department. Dr. Ndlovu, good morning and welcome to the Daily Discourse. To what extent have vaccine rates declined in the country?
We've really seen a major vaccine decline in this country, and it's a bit scary when you look at what used to be our coverage at 87% in 2021, we've dropped to 67% in 2025. In terms of the first dose that the children received under 1 year. And that's a major drop that the whole country must be worried about it.
Which vaccinations are children not receiving, which they desperately need?
We are seeing, for example, the first dose, which would then rise, which would include your measles, the earlier vaccines in 6 weeks. It will include your measles vaccines, even our 6-in-1, which covers quite a lot of infections, your diphtheria, what you call whooping cough, the whooping cough. It's not being done. Then we now have also the Haemophilus, which prevents in terms of your pneumonias and your meningitis. You also have we mentioned the diphtheria. We now have the hepatitis, that hexavalent. So it's got 6-in-1. We are not seeing that has declined to 60%, which then talks to the different infections. As I've mentioned, your measles is another major one. And it's the kind of vaccines that we had covered. We were doing very well in the country with the herd immunity, meaning then you are not seeing the breakouts of infections. But now we are seeing the breakouts of measles across the country because of all those infections are not being covered. And the children. And I think what is important is for people to understand. We now would be seeing our vulnerable children getting infections that we were not seeing in the country.
I mean, this is so worrying, Doctor. Tell me why parents and caregivers are not vaccinating their children as they should be doing.
I think our parents, firstly, it's maybe the awareness and the information and the education on the importance of vaccinating children. Remember, we vaccinate the children so that the child doesn't get infected. Even if they do, they are not sick to a point of having severe illnesses that can result into severe impact or even death. And that is what we are trying to break out. I think our parents might not be well informed. Secondly, they might be listening to the wrong messages, the myths that are going on, because you can see the decline started in 2020, 2021, and we are knowing that it's that time of the COVID that impacted, and people started mixing vaccines. We've always had vaccination for our children. We've never had issues around them. And I think most of us would have grown up with the BCG vaccine in terms of TB. We would have, which by the way is also important, the polio. You don't see the polio, but parents need to understand those diseases can come back, and we know the impact of polio globally and in the country and in Africa, and we've eliminated it. But those can come back. But the measles as well, the impact of terms of the pneumonia that it can cause if we are not, and death that results your diarrhea. So I think it's really that understanding and the information and the parents understanding and not mixing issues, understanding that these vaccinations were there to protect our children, but also we are not protecting the next child. Because remember now, the infections then spreads into the broader and into the other children if we are not vaccinating. So everyone needs, every child has to be vaccinated.
And tell me, Doctor, if parents or caregivers have neglected to vaccinate their children, can they remedy this by going to a clinic right now and doing this immediately?
That is what we are trying to do, is that if you've missed your vaccination, please go back. And the drive is about going back to our clinics and getting the vaccination. And we will also be driving the campaigns around in the whole country to ensure that as we call on them with the campaigns, telling them where they are in the different provinces, please, they must heed to the call and bring the children. But even without the campaign, every parent who's out there whose child has not been vaccinated, go back to your card. You know that road to health card is so important. Just go back to the clinic and say, please, can you vaccinate? Let's catch up. We're really wanting to catch up with every child that is out there. And remember, it's the ones who are less than a year, between 2 and 5. There are boosters as well, immunization at the age of 5. There's even a booster at the age of 12 in terms of the DT. Please, can they send the children back to our facilities for vaccination?
And I think it might be important to remind our listeners as well, Dr. Ndlovu, that there's no entry to school without a valid vaccination certificate. Does that still stand?
That still stands, and I think schools are still asking for the vaccination cards. And remember, it's not to deny the child. It's always important. It's not to deny them education, but it's to make sure that the child is vaccinated. It's just an assurance, but also making sure the child can be well and also protect the child and protect the other kids in the school. So I was seeing other parents the other day, they were doing copies, and it was copies of their vaccination cards, and I knew that they must be applying in school, which is very good. So please, parents, this is not penalizing parents. This is about the wellness of our children and their future, by the way.
I think this is really important, what you're saying to us here, Dr. Nonhlanhla Ndlovu. She's Deputy Director General at the National Department of Health. And of course, if you have lost the opportunity, if you lost out on the opportunity to take your children to a clinic or a hospital to get them vaccinated, you can still do that. You can still catch up on those vaccinations. You never want to be in a situation where you've failed to do that and it results in their contracting an illness that may be life-threatening. This has happened to people who've lost their children as a consequence of not vaccinating them, so take action right away.
It's the first elimination challenge of the Tastemaster Junior, this Sunday evening at 7 as the bottom 6 take a culinary trip to Central America. It's a fiesta in the kitchen as they learn how to make their own tacos, along with all the trimmings. Who will bring the heat and who will be the first young chef to be sent home? Find out on the Tastemaster Junior, Sunday at 7, repeat Saturday at 4:30 and Sunday at 3:30, only on SABC2.
Scholar transport drivers, every winter morning, our children depend on you to get them to school safely. But overloaded vehicles and rushing against time puts lives at risk. Remember, our children are not cargo. Overloading reduces your ability to stop on wet or icy roads. Drive responsibly, arrive safely, protect every child, every trip. This message is brought to you by the National Department of Transport.
Hey, we buy cars. How does it work if I want to sell my car?
We'll drive to your place. You can visit our pods. Even if you don't have space, then at the mall in a parking lot, we've got lots of depots all across the land. Contact We Buy Cars. You're in safe hands. Safe hands.
Wow, that's great.
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
SAFM is streaming live now on Facebook, YouTube, and X at SAFM Radio.
Just gone 19 minutes past 10 on the Daily Discourse. And of course, I'm not sure if you've seen the awful visuals that have come out of Nepal in South Asia. But if you haven't, tune into the SABC News channel and have a look. That country that's, of course, nestled in the Himalayas between China and India is experiencing the most horrific floods. And SABC News has actually just broken this a short while ago. 6 South Africans are missing in these Nepalese floods. And that's out of 600 tourists from all over the world who remain unaccounted for, says the Nepal Nepalese Tourism Board. So, of course, aid organisation Gift of the Givers is on standby to assist, as they often do in situations of this kind. Let's speak to its founder, Dr. Imtiaz Suleiman, who joins us on the line now. Dr. Suleiman, good morning and welcome. I understand a South African couple specifically asked for your help to find their daughter who's been caught up in the floods. Please tell us more about this.
Morning, Joanne. It's the other way around. The daughter asked me, I know the daughter, she's a friend of mine,
Right.
and she called last night, and she said, look, she was distraught, and I was wondering what happened. And she said, look, please, can you help? Please, can you help? And I'm trying to figure out what's the problem. And she said, the floods took place in Nepal. My parents are there. They went on pilgrimage. And, the tour operator said that they caught up in the area where the floods are. There's another South African couple with them. We don't know how to find them. There's no communication. There's no access. Can you, with your context, you've been there in 2015, can you help? So I said, okay, yes, let me start making inquiries. And of course, I started the whole process of preparing teams and speaking to the Nepalese government and our government. I mean, so lots of details. And then she sent me a message about, and then of course, I spoke to the tour operator. They said there's 4 South Africans. There were 12 UK citizens and 4 of their own Nepalese, like tourist guides or kind of stuff in the bus. And, all that has disappeared. Or they don't know where they've gone to. And then we've had other South Africans that I also know from Durban. And there's a mother and a lady, and I think it's a daughter who's a doctor. They were fine, but they were not in that area. They had moved on somewhere else. And then about 2 hours later, the friend called again and said, don't worry about my parents. I don't think they made it, because they got a message that they were in a building, and the building has been totally decimated by the flood.
Oh, no.
So by all counts, my parents didn't make it.
That really is sad, and I really hope that the families caught up in this, don't have a similar result, as a result of looking for their family members. Tell me, has the Nepalese government asked you for assistance yet, Dr. Suleiman?
No, we've approached them, but a lot of things have happened since the floods last night. We start our activation mechanism straight away. We were there in 2015, so 3 of the guys, it's 11 years ago. 3 of the disaster management people were still there. They're in contact with my teams. We become friends with people. And the guy said, look, we're going to present the case to the Nepalese government. We're doing that from Nepal itself. And then in South Africa through the embassy. We're in contact with the embassy people. And the ambassador of Nepal to South Africa is right now in Kathmandu. And they're having a meeting in about an hour's time or 2 hours' time with foreign ministers of their own foreign ministers in other countries. And they've asked us to put it in writing, what we can offer. But they said 2 or 3 things. He said, number one, the first question I asked him is, has your government made a call for international assistance? If a government doesn't make a call for international assistance, we don't intervene. Secondly, do you want us now or a little later? We're ready to come. I've got 11 of my team members ready. And of course, I spoke to the Deputy National Commissioner of the police. We got 4 SAPS guys and 4 dogs. We always take the police with us. It's training for our country. They're ready. And he said, don't come now, because even we ourselves are uncertain. And he said, because the water levels are rising, all the roads are gone. The only way inside is on a helicopter, but the helicopter can't land because there's no solid ground. The water level is too high. So even we as Nepalese, the disaster as military, we can't do anything right now. And when we spoke to him, it was already dark there. So he said, we can't see anything. We don't know what's going on. And then he said, the third thing is there's a secondary risk that the water levels have filled the dam too much, and there's a danger the dam wall is going to burst. It's going to be more chaos. And he said, people are going to come here, and they can't do anything right now, because even we can't do anything right now. Then this morning, he sent a message to say he's already spoken to the foreign ministry, to the government. He's presented our letter to them, and we offered 4 dogs and teams. He said they're going to have a discussion and let us know when the government makes a decision whether they want international teams or don't want international teams. They haven't made that decision yet because they themselves can't make out what's going on the ground because they can't get there. So we said, don't rush. It's going to take a few days. Unfortunately, nobody can do anything right now. And once it presents that and if they say yes, we'll put them on a plane. And then in the meantime, we got a call now from the embassy in Pretoria to say that the ambassador is waiting in Kathmandu for us to put everything in writing, what we can offer. They want to present it as a discussion in the government, today. He already presented the other paper, and they spend more time thanking us for something that we haven't even done yet. So it's that kind of story. But the point is, we will not send a team unless there's a call for international assistance.
Right. And are you liaising with our International Relations Department as well to keep track of what is needed on the ground in Nepal?
We've already been offered assistance by Anil Sukla. He's got a very good relationship with Nepal, and he said on behalf of DOCA is prepared to facilitate everything. The Embassy of Nepal is prepared to facilitate everything. The disaster management that we have a relationship with said they will receive us. Everything will be done from Kathmandu because it's only 125 kilometers from the disaster site, but there's no roads, and that everything will have to be done by helicopter and by the military. They will take care of us. They will take our teams. They will arrange everything. They will receive us, but on condition the Nepal government has filed.
Well, thank you for putting us in the picture as to how far you are with this process of offering assistance. Dr. Imtiaz Suleiman, he's founder of Gift of the Givers. And Dr. Suleiman, I'm going to ask you to please also stay in contact with us and let us know what is happening in terms of your operation and whether you will be going, because it looks as though they will certainly need help once these floodwaters have settled a little in this country. It really is a very, very sad story. And of course, he was clarifying for me earlier the fact that it was a young woman, a friend who asked, a South African woman who asked for assistance to try to find her parents who were in Nepal on pilgrimage. And it appears that they may have died in these floods because it appears that the building they were in was washed away entirely. And if you look at the visuals of this, as I said a little earlier on in the show, survival when you've got floods of this magnitude is just so slim. You can see that from the visuals of people who are trying to flee, but the magnitude of the waves, the pall of water that is travelling through the streets, and it's clearly, as Dr. Imtiaz Suleiman has told us, destroyed all road infrastructure in many areas, and consequently, even if they take a helicopter out there, it's going to be a real challenge to try to land in that country. All right, let's listen to some of the earlier voice notes that came in. Here's one on the issue of bad drivers.
Good morning, Joanne. This is Mutlatsi from Pretoria. Can we address the drivers on the road that won't allow others to overtake? Some people will drive at a very low speed, and then when somebody overtakes, it's like they catch a wake up, and then suddenly they're blocking or they are increasing the speed. What's up with that? What's with the satanic acts on the road?
I think that's actually a good description, because watching South African drivers drive these days, we drove from Durban to Johannesburg a couple of days ago, and really the driving is just appalling. People not indicating, people driving slowly in the fast lane, etc. I mean, a multiple of offences was being committed on the roads that I observed the other day, and it's just, I don't know about the state of our driving in this country, but I also worry, particularly in Gauteng and Johannesburg in particular, that so many people have bought their licenses that they actually don't know the basic rules of the road. And then one of you is talking about systems that need to work for the good of South Africans.
Juan, good morning. Good morning, listeners. Laura Stenberg. Juan, it's unfortunately our system. We had a good system in place, but the implementers, those are the people that cost us in most cases. That's why today we are having criminals doing as they please. So our government must tie up at least our system to work to favor the innocents instead of favoring the people who are always at wrong foot of the law. Thank you, sir.
Joanne, good morning. I'm Jagadayo. I'm in Eastern Cape, Kofimvawa. Here in the Eastern Cape, we are in a state of dilapidated infrastructure. If you talk about the roads, Joanne, it's hard to drive on these roads. These roads were right during the time of Tatuma Tanzima. When we're talking about them now, the ambulance, they can break any time. It is hard, man, because you see, when you are called for an emergency, you need to drive faster so that you can take that person to a place that is going to resuscitate the condition of that person. But it is hard because of this tender system. We have failed by the NNC government. We have failed.
Good morning, Joan. Clearly, people from Eastern Cape, they are ignorant and they lack political literacy. How can they continue voting for the ANC? We know that Oscar Mabian is corrupt in South Africa. Everyone knows he's corrupt. He's corrupt to the core. So, but they will be amazed come the election, they will continue voting for the ANC. I don't know how they expect change, even though they don't effect that change themselves. Aubrey.
Thanks for your messages, Aubrey, and everyone else who sent their voice notes in, and keep sending them in. We're going to play them during the course of the show. Right now, it's 10:30. Let's get your latest news headlines.
Good morning. Thanks, Joanne. In the headlines, 3 people have died and 4 others sustained serious injuries in a collision between 2 minibus taxis and a heavy motor vehicle on the N7 near Dunoon this morning. Counsel for retired Hawks head Dr. Godfrey Libia has told the Madlanga Commission that his client's application for legal representation funded by the South African Police Service was declined, forcing him to appear before the inquiry at his own expense. And the Nepal Tourism Board has now confirmed that there are 6 South Africans who are unaccounted for after flash floods swept parts of Nepal and Tibet. Nearly 1,500 people, including almost 800 foreigners, are missing. I'll have details on these and other stories at 11.
Running a truck fleet business in this economy is tough. Fuel, maintenance, staff, the costs never stop. That's why I switched to My Way Business Insurance. Now I save up to 20% on my insurance premiums every month. These savings go a long way to keeping my fleet on the move.
Switch to My Way Business Insurance and save up to 20% on your trucks and buses. Real businesses, real savings. Call us on 0860 646464 for a quote today. My Way is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. Standard rates and T's and C's apply.
It's the first elimination challenge of the Tastemaster Junior, this Sunday evening at 7 as the bottom 6 take a culinary trip to Central America. It's a fiesta in the kitchen as they learn how to make their own tacos, along with all the trimmings. Who will bring the heat and who will be the first young chef to be sent home? Find out on the Tastemaster Junior, Sunday at 7, repeat Saturday at 4:30 and Sunday at 3:30, only on SABC2.
For 90 years, South Africa has changed. Governments have changed. Generations have changed. Technology has changed. But through it all, one thing has remained. The conversation. From the voices of yesterday.
It's 5 o'clock on Wednesday, the 1st of March, and this is SAFM 104 to 107.
Hello. Good morning, Mr. Raphael. A very, very happy 100th birthday to you. This is Radio Stay Funny. You tell us about yourself a little bit. When you came to South Africa and what you did.
Well, I arrived in South Africa in the early days.
And the time just coming up to 7 minutes to 6 South African time, which is 3 hours 53 Greenwich Mean Time.
To the voices shaping tomorrow. This August, SAFM celebrates 90 years of conversation. A nation's story, our shared future. SAFM turns 90 from 1 August. SAFM, the conversation continues.
The Minister of Human Settlements, Thembi Simelane, will close the 2026 Women's Month by hosting a Women in the Human Settlement Sector dialogue. Convened under the theme, Value Chain Opportunities for Women in the Human Settlement Sector, Empowered Women, Empower the Nation. The dialogue will provide an evidence-based platform for reflection, recognition and forward commitment on women's economic empowerment in the human settlement sector, including the recently issued Human Settlements Policy Directive, in response to the gender-based violence and femicide epidemic. Tune into the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on Monday the 31st of August 2026 for more on this important dialogue.
The Daily Discourse. More than talk, real understanding.
Heading for 10:35 on the Daily Discourse. And if you live in the Eastern Cape and you have children of school-going age, I wonder if they've been affected by the underfunding of public schools there. You can tell me, of course, on our WhatsApp line 0614 104 107 or on our studio line 086 000 2032. The Citizen is reminding us that the Eastern Cape High Court had to intervene to demand that government properly fund public schools in that province. It said failing to do so is unconstitutional and unlawful. Well, you're about to hear from a couple of parties drawn into the fray. Let's start with Cecile van Skalkwyk, who's a senior attorney at the Legal Resources Centre. Ms. van Skalkwyk, good morning and thank you for joining us on the Daily Discourse. On what grounds did government decide to withhold a third of the allocated budget to public schools?
Thank you so much, and thank you to your listeners. That's a very interesting question, actually, to start off with, because I think that was never quite clear for us through the litigation why exactly this money was withheld by government. Government purported to say that they were withholding a third of the per learner allocation. That is it's sort of the basic and the sort of minimum amount that the minister determines every year that schools must receive for the education for learners. And what the department in the Eastern Cape has been doing over the last couple of years is they've just retained a third of that money for what they call provincial norms and standards for school funding. They purported to, according to them, in the court papers, they spent the money on things like vocational schools and e-learning, which are not things that the per learner allocation in terms of the norms and standards may be used for. So the court effectively declared that sort of practice of retaining money for other purposes that is meant to go to the schools and that the schools are meant to use to be able to educate the children, buy textbooks, buy stationery, do maintenance on schools, pay municipal services. That practice of withholding some of that money, the court has now declared unlawful and invalid and unconstitutional.
So how many schools were actually affected by this withholding of that funding, Ms. van Skalkwyk?
It was all the schools in the Eastern Cape, all the public schools in the Eastern Cape. I think the schools that were probably most affected were the no fee paying schools that aren't able to substitute their income by way of school fees. But even our fee paying schools, the amounts that they received from government were also cut by about a third. And I should mention that during the current financial year, so 2026-2027, that amount has gone up to 40% of the budget that is being retained for these unlawful expenditures.
So I actually was going to ask you about that because the amount that we were told about being withheld was for the year 2023-24, right? So my first question was going to be why for that period in particular, assuming that they were continuing to return to the old funding model. But clearly they're now withholding this as a habit. Why is the court not ruled on the current situation?
So at the time that the application was brought, it was in 2023, and the years that were covered then in the litigation were 2020. It was 2022, 2023, and 2023, 2024. Of course, we know, there's a delay between when a case is launched and when the court actually ultimately hears it. So that's why the last couple of years have not been included. But the implication, I think, of this order now is that in, the years that have followed and the years that are to come, that practice will now remain unlawful and invalid and unconstitutional. So the retention at the moment is certainly in the practice has continued, and for this financial year, of course, that retention remains an unlawful retention.
So what does the ruling mean government must now do immediately?
So from an immediate perspective, what the order now does is that it places an obligation on the Eastern Cape Department of Education to, on a quarterly basis, report back to the court on the steps that it has taken to ensure that this practice is not repeated in the coming financial year. I think what it effectively means for, especially the Eastern Cape Department of Education, is that they would have to go back to the drawing board and determine, how are we allocating funding to schools? And I think the judgment is quite clear, or the order is quite clear, that you cannot, this school allocation is meant for the schools. The schools must use it to cover expenses the department cannot unilaterally decide to withhold some of that allocation for their own purposes, and this money must go to the school. So I think in the coming financial years, we will certainly see, hopefully on ground level, a massive improvement in the amount of money that schools are receiving. Because I think what has happened over the last couple of years, and this is the thing that a lot of people don't realize, is that schools have become poorer and poorer because they are less able, they don't get enough money from government. So the burden has shifted to parents. And we often hear in the media about parents complaining that they've got to buy a lot of stationery at the beginning of the year. They now have to buy paper for the school. They have to give toilet paper. They have to give cleaning products to the school. And parents say, well, why is this happening? Why am I suddenly, generally people who are also in very difficult financial circumstances, now I am burdened with supporting and supplementing the school's income. And the reality of it is that many schools are in this position because of these repeated years of underfunding by the government, and of government retaining money that the schools never see, and then placing them in a position where they're unable to meet the educational needs of the learners.
So in the coming years, they will have to reassess this, and then they will have to abide by the court order. What about the previous years and the current year? Is the Education Department going to have to return that money that was withheld?
Yeah. So the court did not order that they have to return the money. I think part of the difficulty with returning money of going back so many financial years is that, of course, the budget cycle moves along, right? And if one would have to disrupt the budget cycle to such an extent that, we're talking about billions here, right? It would have massive implications not only for the current financial year, but I think for the years to come if they are forced to pay back money that probably no longer exists and have probably been expended on other things, right? That we were never quite clear from the court papers exactly what those other things were and how the money was spent. But I think that, the applicants certainly felt that there would have been an undue burden placed if on government if they had to return this money when potentially the money doesn't exist and there might be unintended consequences for the current financial year and for the years to come. But I think that what it now means is that going forward, the school allocation in any case is very low for learners. In our no-fee paying schools, for example, this year, the amount is just over 1,800 Rand per learner. That is the amount that the schools receive to be able to actually educate the learner for the entire financial year. And in the coming years, hopefully the schools will get the benefit of that entire amount rather than 33% of that just being retained by government.
All right. Thank you so much for your insight there. That was Cecile van Wyk, Senior Attorney at the Legal Resources Centre. Let's bring into the conversation Basil Manuel. He's Executive Director at the National Professional Teachers Organisation of South Africa. Mr. Manuel, good morning and welcome. What have the consequences been of a third of this funding being withheld for teachers and students?
First of all, good afternoon and good morning, rather, and thanks for having me. We welcome this ruling. It's extremely important. We've been complaining about it and we've had countless meetings, but particularly in KZN, where the situation is even worse. But it's adding insult to injury because I just wanted to add something which our legal rep was talking about. Whilst the minister determines an amount, provinces are allowed to determine their own amount under that, and they've cut that second amount. So many provinces aren't even paying the proposed full amount that is suggested. They are allowed to have a variation, but the tragedy is that this amount is such a little. And if you are the head of a school or a governing body, you would know that this money doesn't even cover the basics of water and lights, let alone all the other things that it is supposed to fund. So for teachers directly, it means that, well, maybe we can keep the lights on now, or we can buy all the stationery we need, but we can never buy the stationery, the textbooks, and pay the water and lights out of that allocation. So the allocation is vastly inadequate.
And tell me, in regard to what the money has been diverted to, do you feel that those were legitimate causes, that the department had good reason to divert this funding towards?
No, we don't believe that it is 100% legitimate. We understand why certain things are done and that there is money needed. But if we don't have the money for those projects, why are we pushing them? Take, for example, these winter schools and spring schools, etc., which we understand there's some good that comes out of it. But how they are run currently doesn't make sense. And for people to go and there. And that is why there are very few complaints that come out from the overworking of people. What concern is that I think the work
Mr. Manuel, sorry, we've suddenly lost you there. Well, we don't have you as clearly as we did a moment ago. Would you just please repeat what you were saying a moment ago?
Oh, I was saying...
No, we appear to have lost you. Let's put you back to Ganilwe and we'll get you back on the line in just a moment. Let's take a quick break.
Remember the first time your soul felt alive? Or the last time music moved you so deeply you didn't want it to end? That feeling is calling you back. You're officially invited to come experience soulful performances from global icons Kamasi Washington, Temba and Africam Kize, Nubaya Garcia, Ibrahim Malouf, Judith Supuma, Angelique Kidjo, Ndabo Zulu, Melanie Skolch, Flowetry, Taniswa Mazwai, and 40 world-class acts. 4 incredible stages of the Sandton Convention Center. 1 unforgettable experience at the Standard Bank Joy of Jazz, 25th to 26th September. This is Jazz Reignited. Get your weekend pass now via Ticketmaster.
Welcome to the SABC Radio Archives. For over a century, we've passionately captured South Africa's heartbeat, preserving historic moments,
Time for the healing of the wounds has come.
iconic music, and compelling storytelling from all 19 SABC radio stations, ensuring these priceless recordings shape future generations. Explore a century of South African heritage waiting to be rediscovered. Visit the SABC Information Library and Radio Archives online or call us directly at 011-714-3936 or email lishilosj@sabc.co.za. SABC Libraries and Archives, preserving the past, supporting the present, inspiring the future.
SAFM is streaming live now on Facebook, YouTube, and X at SAFM Radio.
Just after 11:15 on the Daily Discourse, we're continuing our conversation at this hour about the underfunding of schools in the Eastern Cape. Speaking at the moment to Basil Manuel, Executive Director of the National Professional Teachers Association, or Organisation rather, of South Africa, NAPTOSA. And sorry about that bad line, Mr. Manuel, but when we were interrupted, you were talking about the diversion of some of the funding, about a third of the funding, to other efforts like winter schools and so forth, but being diverted away from the daily required budgets of schooling in the province.
Thank you very much, and sorry about that. I think I accidentally knocked the phone, but nevertheless, the point I was making is, whilst there may be some good that comes out of this, you can't put one good against another. But we also have a problem with how these schools are run, where children are in schools and the schools are being used as hostels and they don't have proper facilities. It's a disaster waiting to happen. But add to that other programs. Yes, we agree. We want to see more technology, etc. But when you say to a school, we are retaining this, but they don't see the technology coming towards the school, then there's a problem with that. There are some serious questions about how the money is used, where it is used, and whether the schools have actually derived benefit. The last point I want to make here is they've also said they're holding money back for water and lights. And then the bills still come to the school because the water and lights haven't been paid.
This is really very worrying indeed. Let me ask you as well about the money that is paid to schools, right? Is there ever a delay in payments?
Oh, yes. And not only the Eastern Cape, but in various departments. Gauteng even was very late in the last financial year. KZN is the serial offender. And schools depend on it. And when you think about a no-fee school, as our legal person was saying, no-fee schools have no other way of generating money. Parents don't pay. Now they start little schemes where they ask parents to make voluntary contributions, etc. That leads to big arguments within the community. And the reality is they can't even buy coffee for a guest who comes. They can't even buy the basics. If there's no paper in the school because the department hasn't bought the paper, because some of these schools are Section 20 schools where the department supplies, they can't go out and buy. So it's a real problem if the money's late.
And I presume you're putting pressure on a parental community that is also very disadvantaged. Many of these areas are quite impoverished, are they not?
Extremely so. They can't afford, and in fact, things like the feeding scheme, which thank heavens in most places is running quite well, if that wasn't there, these kids would be coming to school even hungrier than they are, let alone having money for these additional items, which government is telling them are sorted out, they paid for. And then they find out that the province has cut a slice away and they have to now step in.
Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us on this. Basil Manuel, Executive Director of NAPTOSA. And of course, I must tell you that we tried to reach the Eastern Cape Education Government Department, to basically put the same questions to them, to ask them what was being done with the money, why it was being diverted, what they were going to do to actually change the current status quo, where Cecile van Wyk tells us they're now taking about 40% of the money that is meant for the upkeep of schools and to be put towards the resources that children require and teachers require. But we were unable to get them on the program today. They're unavailable today. We're going to try and have this conversation with them in a few days' time to find out what is happening there. But if this is the experience that you have had, if you are living in the Eastern Cape, if you have found that you've got to dig deep to find the money, to be able to fund some of the things that should be paid for at your child's school, do let us know. I mean, the one saving grace is that these children are still getting a meal a day, probably, at school, because the feeding schemes are still going. But children need more than that when they go to school for education. They need an education. That is what they are primarily there for. And if they don't have that access to resources, if they don't even have paper to write on, it really becomes a completely untenable situation. 10:52 on the Daily Discourse. I'm listening to your voice notes next.
Good morning, SA team. Speaking here in the south of Johannesburg. I believe as long as the government is failing this money in terms of protecting and saving, nothing will go right. We're going to go back to the same issue of ambulance. We're going to go back to the same issue of service delivery up until something has to be done from the top, heading down at the bottom. If only then we'll be able to receive any better service, but it's very doubtful.
Thank you for your message there. And of course, it's I must tell you, just out of pure coincidence, that these two stories happen to break at the same time. The story about the Eastern Cape ambulance situation and the school underfunding situation. We weren't particularly wanting to target the Eastern Cape today, but it so happened that these two stories came to light, and you can't ignore them, right? Because we've got citizens who are severely disadvantaged by the circumstances and the environment in which they're living in the Eastern Cape, and we need to bring their stories to the fore. Let's take a call from Kulile in the Eastern Cape. You want to talk about infrastructure there, Kulile. I guess you're living what we're talking about.
Yes, I'm living there in Eastern Cape. But my comment, I think Eastern Cape background. It inherited two homeless.
Yes.
Which by their nature have a rural background. And I think they were not even catered for before. Even this system of ambulance. In the past, you didn't even have an ambulance. But as well, we are saying the problem we are having, I don't know whether it's only in Eastern Cape. Repairs for ambulance is privatized. Unlike in the past, we had government garages where those ambulances and other government vehicles would be repaired. So, and the infrastructure, like even the hospitals in the Eastern Cape, you only have those hospitals which were missionary hospitals, especially those former homelands, like your St. Barnabas and other hospitals. Unlike in KwaZulu-Natal, where we have at least lot of hospitals around there, and some of those hospitals in KZB were private-owned hospitals, like St. Edmunds, which is now a public hospital.
Yes.
In Eastern Cape, we only have one hospital, which was by then a private, like Livingstone. So it means there is still a lot to be done in the Eastern Cape. Of course, we can also complain about those who are managing these resources, even us as maybe the people who are supposed to be assisting the government. We are not doing what we were supposed to do.
If
you want to compare Eastern Cape with other provinces, I think you have also to take into account that it has inherited two homelands.
No, I think that's fair, and you've said that. I think that's fair. That just to acknowledge the history of and the geography of the province. But you know what I'm always amazed by? We had 3 presidents who came out of that province. And it is one of the most, and in many ways, the most disadvantaged province in the country. I don't know how that's happened, that a place you came from has been completely ignored. And it's okay with you. That for me is a complete anomaly. That's one anomaly. It's got a bit noisy in the background there, Kulile, so I'm just going to close your fader. But essentially, I mean, we're 30 years into democracy, right? And the way budget allocation should have worked is that the provinces that required more input because they were more disadvantaged during apartheid should have been given that extra budget, right, to be able to fix whatever it was on the ground that needed to be brought up to a certain level that many of the provinces that are more urbanized would have enjoyed. But I'm still asking the question. I mean, we're 30 years into democracy. What has been done? We had a working ambulance fleet that has not been maintained. Right, government is giving it another bash now in the Eastern Cape, but I wonder whether this 10 million that is being spent on the new fleet of ambulances will actually not be wasted because they won't be able to maintain it after that, because maintenance seems to be something weird and wonderful that nobody thinks about when they buy new equipment and run it. Let's take a call from Mandlokovu in Mgungundlovu. You want to talk about resources in schools and hospitals. Good morning, Mandlokovu.
Good morning, Joanne. I want to say that I think work is still to come. If you consider the fact that every year the social budget, particularly the schools and the hospitals, is cut. So there is nothing else that you can expect. And, one wants to always compare this with the expenditure at cabinet level, which I do not even understand, or I don't know whether anybody has done some research in terms of how much are we paying for that big, cabinet.
Yes.
In comparison to the social services.
And it's the allocation of those services as well, Mandlokovu, what they're put towards, what the money is put towards. I mean, it seems to me, without speaking to the Eastern Cape Education Department, it's difficult to be able to pinpoint this, but other experts are telling us that money is being diverted from basic schooling. Now, it's great to have winter schools and things like that, but if you can't get the basic schooling right, what is the point of having all the nice-to-haves without the basic fundamentals being in place?
Well, exactly. I think the same thing you can say in terms of the department or the health sector.
Yeah.
Because there's always been, or we're supposed to have an emphasis on primary health.
Mm.
But how much is that? The people that work there will tell you that they are faced with difficulties every day, trying to catch up with the numbers and so on and the resources. that are basically depleted every day.
I'm quite flabbergasted at the fact that I asked about the number of hospitals and clinics available because I thought this might have an impact on the long distances that ambulances are having to travel to get from one facility to another, which also results in their having to be repaired and maintained better. But it seems it's the most resourced province in terms of the number of hospitals and clinics there. So when you built those, did you not think you'd have to resource them and put proper personnel in, first of all, as well as all the resources that medical professionals require to do their jobs?
Yeah, well, that's a question.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a basic question, but it's not one that our leaders are able to easily answer. Thank you so much for your input there, Kurile and Mandlokovu. And we'll keep the conversations going here on the Daily Discourse. Right now, it's 11 o'clock, and Musa's got your latest news bulletin.
Thanks, Joanne. In our top stories, Libya denies links to murder-accused Molefe and fatal N7 collision, claims 3 lives near Dunoon. Good morning. Retired Hawks head Dr. Godfrey Libya has denied knowing murder-accused Katiso Katie Molefe or sending members of the Hawks to disrupt an intelligence operation at his house. Members of the political Killing Stars team raided and arrested Molefe on the 6th of December 2024 for his alleged involvement in the murder of Vereniging engineer Armand Swart. Libya is giving testimony at the Matlanga Commission of Inquiry into criminality and infiltration of the criminal justice system. He blamed the arrival of several police units at Molefe's house during a raid on failure by the Police Crime Intelligence Division to communicate and lack of synergy in carrying out its operations.
I do not know Mr. Katiso Molefe. I was not contacted by Mr. Katiso Molefe. I was contacted by Malcolm X. I directed 2 senior managers to verify the allegations of persons who were said to be claiming to be members of the DPCI and to have been sent by me. I have never instructed the members of the DPCI to interrupt a legitimate police operation.
3 people have died and 4 others sustained serious injuries in a collision between 2 minibus taxis and a heavy motor vehicle on the N7 near Dunoon this morning. Western Cape Traffic Chief Maxine Bezuidenhout has urged motorists to avoid the area and find alternative routes.
3 fatalities are confirmed and 4 people sustained serious injuries. All teams are on site attending to the scene. The N7 southbound at Port Stamford Road has been closed. We urge motorists to avoid the area, use alternative routes, and exercise caution as emergency teams continue working at the scene.
The DA is in the Constitutional Court today to seek a final order on the constitutional invalidity against the power of the Finance Minister to unilaterally set the value-added tax rate. The DA has noted that while the Constitution gives that power to Parliament, a section of the VAT Act delegates the setting of VAT to the Minister without a requirement of major support in Parliament. The DA is seeking that the court declares the VAT Act of 1991 invalid and instruct Parliament to amend its laws to ensure that the power to set VAT only sits with Parliament and not the Executive. George Mikalakis is the DA's parliamentary leader.
The DA is to fight for a fair deal for South Africans and to ensure that we do not have a case, as we nearly had a year or 2 ago if the DA didn't go to court, where the Minister of Finance can decide unilaterally to impose a 2% VAT hike that will ultimately cripple many, many poor households across the country. This decision should lie with Parliament, and ultimately, in a constitutional democracy, it's Parliament who decides on how South Africans get taxed. We have won this victory in the Western Cape High Court, and it is our privilege today to be here in the Constitutional Court on behalf of all South Africans.
The Nepal Tourism Board has now confirmed that there are 6 South Africans who are unaccounted for after flash floods swept parts of Nepal and Tibet. Nearly 1,500 people, including almost 800 foreigners, are missing. At least 165 people are feared dead, with the police warning the death toll could rise as rescuers recover more bodies. Helicopters are dropping food and emergency supplies to thousands cut off by the floods, while more than 5,000 soldiers and police are involved in the rescue efforts. Recapping the top story, retired Hawks head Dr. Godfrey Libya has denied knowing murder-accused Katiso Katie Molefe or sending members of the Hawks to disrupt an intelligence operation at his house. For SAFM News, I'm Anne Musa.
Voices may have changed, times may have changed, but the conversation continues. SAFM 90 years.
Good evening, South Africa.
Welcome to the special TV1 newscast. South Africans are flocking to the polls today in one of the country's most historic referendums.
For 90 years, South Africans have shared the moments that matter most, the stories that informed us, the music that moved us, the victories that united us, the voices we'll never forget. Here's to the many stories still to come, celebrating 90 years of SABC.
Hey, we buy cars. How does it work if I want to sell my car?
We'll drive to your place. You can visit our pods. Even if you don't have space, then at the mall in a parking lot, we've got lots of depots all across the land. Contact We Buy Cars. You're in safe hands. Safe hands.
Wow, that's great.
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
90 years of questions, 90 years of answers, 90 years of South Africans.
90 years of broadcasting. Wow. SAFM, this is an incredible milestone. Congratulations and thank you for being a voice that has continued to entertain, inform and connect South Africans through the power of radio. And also thank you so much for being a platform that has allowed us upcoming broadcasters.
Voices may have changed, times may have changed, but the conversation continues. SAFM 90 years. The Daily Discourse on SAFM, weekday mornings from 9 to 12.
7 minutes past 11, we're into the final hour of the Daily Discourse, and if you've just tuned in, lovely to have you with us. Thank you very much for joining us, and of course the conversation continues for another hour here on the Daily Discourse. In the next hour, we're talking about a return to the Suez Canal, and of course this is what's happening, the Red Sea routes opening, and some tentative movement there in terms of more ships passing through the area, but what effect is that going to have on us as South Africa, where ships were rerouting via the Cape of Good Hope? Is that going to have implications for us just when trade was picking up in that area? We're going to have that conversation with a maritime expert in just a moment. And of course, you're welcome to share your thoughts on any other topic that we've covered over the course of the show. There's been a lot of focus on the Eastern Cape, and many of you have been feeding back information on what is happening there in regards to ambulances, on what's happening to the state of education in that province, and we've inadvertently had a focus on the Eastern Cape in this particular show. So perhaps there's something that you are affected by on a daily basis, and you want to talk about in that province, something that you're experiencing, and you're more than welcome to share it with us on our studio line 086 000 2032, our WhatsApp line 0614 104 107. One thing that I'm surprised we haven't had any feedback on, by the way, is the issue of vaccinations. What are you doing about vaccinations? Are you making sure that your children are are vaccinated. Have you been intimidated by what happened during COVID? Because there was a lot of bad press around vaccinations then. And has that put you off vaccinating? And consequently, is there going to be a problem with herd immunity because so few people are vaccinating these days? And are we going to see the return of preventable diseases? That is what scares me the most. We're starting to see these greater outbreaks of pneumonia, of hepatitis, of meningitis, of measles, German measles or rubella. But one of the more worrying things, polio. We had completely wiped out polio in this country. And now all of a sudden we're starting to see polio bacteria in water, right, in certain parts of the country. So it is worrying, and we never want to get back to a situation where our children die of preventable diseases. And of course, kids can't get into school these days without a proper vaccine certificate. So tell me about your experiences in regard to that, and whether you are going to rush off to your clinic and think about having your child vaccinated if you haven't already done so. 10 minutes past 11 on the Daily Discourse, and it looks as though shipping companies are making a slow return to using the Suez Canal. With all the political tensions and security uncertainty there, shipping firms are taking a cautious approach, and they're hoping all will be well as they again return to those Red Sea routes. But what does it mean for freight costs and deliveries to other regions, and what does it mean for South Africa that's provided an alternative for part of this time? Executive Chairperson of the Maritime Business Chamber, Unathi Sonti, is here to break it down for us. Mr. Sonti, good morning, and thank you very much for your time on the Daily Discourse. Take us back to why the Suez Canal became such a tricky transit point for shipping companies in recent months.
Good morning, Ms. Joseph and SAfm listeners. We must remember what has happened with the Suez Canal. It started, in fact, back in 2023 when we have seen, the attacks from the Houthis within that region, and then with the recent issues with regards to the Iran-US challenges as well, that brought some security risks within that region, and that what has caused most of the shipping companies to move away from that shipping route.
Tell me, now that trade is resuming on that shipping route, how will this change the picture in terms of global freight deliveries?
Look, one, in terms of, exporters and importers, it obviously means that there's going to be now, a better movement for them in terms of going back to that shorter shipping route between Asia and Europe. It's going to allow for that. It's going to also mean, cheaper prices in terms of the logistics within that region for the general, global shipping community.
So can we expect freight costs to drop in the near future?
Yes, indeed. But again, remember, this move, it's not something that we can say it's a overnight move. It's a gradual move that is being phased, around that. So obviously, for now, we may not see certain things, but for those freight that have already started to move towards that direction, there would be, some changes. But we need to also understand that the price is also not just about the shorter route itself, but it's based as well on the issues such as the high insurance that one needs to pay, when they are traveling through a war risk premium route.
Oh, that's a very good point indeed. On the brighter side, you mentioned that this is a shorter route for the ships to travel. How much will the latest developments speed up deliveries?
Obviously, the route cuts, now at least 2 weeks from what it has been, the case with them moving around, the Cape of Good Hope. So that's how much of a shorter distance, it's going to cut around roughly 2 to 3 weeks, with regards to that. And it's going to free up, obviously, those freight rates in some of these things.
So while you're talking about that, I'm wondering, will the reopening of the Suez Canal disadvantage South Africa if fewer companies are now transporting goods away from the Cape of Good Hope?
Not really. It's not a disadvantage, for South Africa. We must remember the Cape of Good Hope, the Cape of Good Hope would always exist, and the fact that this is just a gradual, move. So we would indeed not be disadvantaged, but again, it's going to free up, this access of traffic that has been moving, passing our shores, causing quite a number of possible risks that we are happy that we have not experienced yet.
So you think the trade-off has been that that we've it's created a potential security difficulty for us with all the extra traffic passing Cape Town or the Western Cape shores.
Yes, it does create some security and environmental risks at the end of the day, because remember that traffic it had more than doubled in terms of the numbers. But I can tell you as well, in terms of revenue, we did not really, derive much from that traffic that was passing by. It was just a risk passing by without really being a, opportunity that brings much needed revenue into, the South African economy. And it's a result of quite a number of issues that have happened in the country, with the SARS crackdown in 2023 and the other issues that we have not been able, to resolve with regards to the turnaround work within the South African ports.
So you say it put additional pressure on the ports that we couldn't really manage?
Not really. Not really, because of the understanding of the services that we were not going to be able to offer to these passing, vessels. So some of them did not even come to call into the South African ports. Even though we have seen there has been, a growth in terms of the number of vessels that have called, in terms of the vessel arrivals that have come into the South African ports as compared to the previous, period of 2025-2026. We have seen at least a growth where there has been about 8,630 vessels that have called between 2025 and 2026 within our ports, from about 7,912 that have called in the previous term between 2024 and 2025. So at least we've seen a growth, but that did not really, pose a serious threat in terms of our ports not being able to handle such calls.
With the Suez Canal being reopened, how long do you think it's going to take for global supply chains to stabilize?
Obviously, I think remember what has happened was already there were some big shipping companies that had made announcements in terms of them taking permanent decisions of how they are going to move their cargo moving forward. So obviously this process is not really going to be as quick as it has been in the past, where everyone just moves in, because the threat is still there. So up until everyone is at ease and can see that there is none of this threat that could threaten the cargo, that could threaten the seafarers, which is the life inside the vessels, then that's when I think we would see now a proper resumption of the movement that it was in the past in terms of the number of vessels that would now be moving through the Suez Canal on a daily basis, which we have seen, they have been able in the past, to handle 10 to 15% of total global trade. But in the past month, that is not so. I think for them to get back to that, it's going to take, a few months. And it's an opportunity that is still open for South Africa in the meantime as well.
Thank you very much for speaking to us, Unathi Sonti. He's Executive Chairperson of the Maritime Business Chamber.
In case you missed it,
cadres with ethical standards that is beyond any reproach and question, with integrity, with necessary qualifications, who basically are going to have to work differently. That is why leaders at this level are expected to produce ward delivery schedules. Each and every mayor, including their collectives, including those ward councillors, are going to have ward delivery schedules to be assessed.
Dr. Dixon Masemola, ANC NEC member.
That was The Meeting Point with Koketso Sachane. Every generation has a story. Every generation has questions. Every generation has a voice. For 90 years, SAfm has been part of the conversation. This August, we listen back to the voices that brought us here. We celebrate the people who shaped our journey, and we listen for the voices that will shape what comes next, including the launch of a new annual SAfm property. This Women's Month, we are in search of an SAfm woman. 4 extraordinary women, 4 extraordinary journeys. One question: what does it mean to be an SAfm woman? SAfm 90 years, women, a new voice. 90 years of conversation, a nation story, our shared future. From 1 August, SAfm.
The Minister of Human Settlements, Thembi Simelane, will close the 2026 Women's Month by hosting a Women in the Human Settlements Sector Dialogue. Convened under the theme Value Chain Opportunities for Women in the Human Settlement Sector, Empowered Women Empower the Nation, the dialogue will provide an evidence-based platform for reflection, recognition and forward commitment on women's economic empowerment in the human settlement sector, including the recently issued Human Settlements Policy Directive in response to gender-based violence and femicide. Tune in to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on Monday the 31st of August 2026 for more on this important dialogue.
The Daily Discourse, more than talk, real understanding.
11:21 on the Daily Discourse. Thanks for the messages that have been coming in on the WhatsApp line. Let's tackle some of those now. One of you is commenting on driving and trucks on the roads.
Joanne, I think people, when they renew their license, they must be tested again. And as for the truck drivers, I think the Minister of Transport, they should take trucks off the road from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. The truck drivers don't give a damn about no one else on the road, and you worry about small cars. Yeah, retested when you renew your license. Trucks off the road from 6 to 9. Let the people who get to work and the children to get to school. Thank you. Q from Durban.
Thank you so much for that, Q. I'm just wondering what would happen to the economy if we practiced that. And I mean, it was very uncomfortable for me every time I get on the road from Durban to Johannesburg or vice versa. The number of trucks on the road is it's astonishing. I'm astounded at the numbers of trucks on the roads. But that's also because we largely have a rail system that is not working the way it should. I know that Transnet is working on this, and there are aspects of it, the elements of the road freight or the railway freight system that are now starting to work. But as it is, these trucks have already been invested in. And so people are doing their business on the roads. And consequently, it's a very difficult drive to various places in the country right now, because you've got to traverse these roads that are full of trucks. I don't know how organizations like the Road Freight Association, for example, would respond to the suggestion that trucks be taken off the road for part of the day, especially where long distances are concerned. So perhaps if you work in that industry, you want to respond to that and tell me whether that is a possible and a practical solution to what ordinary drivers are experiencing on the roads. Then one of you is talking about the Eastern Cape using local elections as an opportunity to force change.
Hey, Joanne, good morning. As for now, you are speaking about the Eastern Cape. For the people of Eastern Cape, the solution is there for everyone to see. If the current government is not doing what they are supposed to do, vote them out. Here is the coming election, 2 or 3 months from now. Now is the time to make the changes. Instead of going around saying we are not having this and that, change the situation by voting the current government out of power. Case closed.
All right. One of you is talking about government officials using the public healthcare services. That suggestion was made by David in Durban a little bit earlier on in our program, and one of you is echoing those sentiments.
Morning, Joanne, and all the SAFM listeners. I'm Shaul here from East London. I don't know if it would at all be possible, but I'll rate the only way you're going to fix like the, public medical sector or whatever it is if government officials are not allowed to have private medical aid, because the thing is those guys are getting paid a decent salary, the government officials, and obviously they can afford private medical aid and whatever, so they don't make use of the public hospitals or whatever the case is. So I rate if they had to make use of the public hospitals, then they would experience what millions of South Africans experience on a daily basis. And I don't know, that's just my opinion. I feel that then only will we see some sort of change. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Charles. I wonder, I wonder. So firstly, it might not be constitutional to force them to use a particular kind of healthcare service. But at the same time, I have a feeling that if they were forced to, there would be particular clinics or hospitals that they would go to where the service would be second to none. They would make sure that, the hospital or the clinic near the parliamentary buildings was operated like your top tier private hospital. That's exactly what it would be like, because let's face it, they often think of themselves first, right? And so they would make sure that whatever facility they were using would be top notch, and then you drive a few kilometers down the road and then you'd see the ordinary people like you and me having to use the substandard facilities. That's the way it would work. And then one of you is commenting on trucks being part of the economy.
Good morning, As Johan. To the guy who phoned and complained about the trucks. People, be realistic. Our economy depends on those trucks. These things of people who drive a nice car because they just started working now, they don't know all those parts of those cars, all that fuel, all that paperwork that they do in their offices is through those trucks. Come on, man. Come on, be nice to truck drivers.
Good point. Sintu in Midrand is on the line to us. Sintu, good morning. You want to talk about the Eastern Cape ambulance situation? Hi, Sintu.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Please
yes,
go ahead.
I tried to come in earlier on when you were having, I'm not sure whether it was an HOD from Eastern Cape or not.
Yes, it was the acting, I think it was the acting health department spokesman.
Yes, man. My heart is very painful, man, because I've been raising this to quite for a very long time right now, you see. And I'm coming from the municipality of Inokumkijima in a location called Hofmeyer. I think it's almost now a month now without an ambulance. Basically an ambulance, you see. I've tried to talk to the MEC, and then she was telling me some trivial excuses that the ambulance have been taken for services, and all the other regions do not have ambulance, Sarah Batman and whatever, because we're falling under Krisani district municipality, but our local municipality is Inokumkijima, the one that has been always on the news. Now you remember that we do not even have a 24-hour service clinic in that area, you see. And then a very high numbers of farms are depending on that area for an ambulance. And people do not have, patients are not getting their own medication due to the non-availability of these services. You see, we really want to appeal to the Eastern Cape government is to avail these ambulances, because people are getting stabbed. And then recently when I was at home, I think 2 weeks back, somebody had to be taken to the nearest town called Stainsburg. It's about 40 kilometers from Hofmeyer. That person had to be taken back because, in terms of jurisdiction, he was not supposed to be there.
No.
I've been raising these issues with the MEC. I've written emails to Gibson Mondi, to even Premier Mabuyane, but nothing is happening. I'm not sure if maybe you guys can intervene. The area is the Hofmeyer. It is in the Eastern Cape.
Yeah. Well, it looks as though this new fleet of ambulances that is arriving and the repairs being done to the old ambulances is getting underway, right? The acting head of department told us, or was it the head of department? He told us that that the situation is being remedied. They're spending 10 million rand. I'm hoping that by February next year, you, like other residents of the Eastern Cape, are going to see the positive results of this.
But
yes.
Joanne, it's an excuse. I think it's a lack of proper planning. You see, because when they know, really, it's lack of proper planning. Because these ambulance is constitutional. They are supposed to be dispersed to the people of that area.
Yes, no, you're quite right. You're quite right. But I'm hoping. I don't want to jump the gun with that conversation, simply because he tells me that they're working on the problem and that they are actually sourcing new ambulances. So give it a few months. I'm sorry to ask you to do that, Sintu, but give it a few months and stay in contact with us by sort of next year, towards the end of this year, the beginning of next year. If you're finding that you still haven't had any joy in getting those services to your area, please let us know, all right?
Yes, because
we'll follow it up for you.
Yeah, because our local clinics are unable to do referrals because there is no ambulance there. Please do that, you see, but we'll be waiting.
Okay.
You see.
All right.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you for sharing that with us in Midrand. All right. That brings us to 11:30 on the Daily Discourse. Let's catch up on your latest news headlines and we'll continue your conversations with you after that.
Thank you, Joanne. In the headlines at 11:30, retired Hawks head Dr. Godfrey Lebeya has denied knowing murder accused Katiso KT Molefe or sending Hawks members to disrupt an intelligence operation at Molefe's house. Lebeya is giving testimony at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. A mother and her son from Scottsdene in Kraaifontein in Cape Town have been shot dead outside their house this morning. Police spokesperson Ndake Gwala says the motive for the attack is unknown at this stage. And the case against Zimbabwean British national Ndodana Chuma, who is facing a charge of unlawful possession of a firearm, has been postponed to the 8th of next month in the Johannesburg Magistrates Court. Details at 12 o'clock.
The Daily Discourse, more than talk, real understanding.
11:31 on the Daily Discourse. We're continuing our conversations with you, and Johnny in Naledi, Soweto, is on the line to us. Johnny, good morning. What's on your mind?
Morning, Australian. I'm a delivery driver.
Yeah.
The driving, it's I don't understand. People that don't indicate. Someone who will be driving, and you see that he's showing up that I'm WhatsApping, and there's nothing you can do about it. WhatsApping on the fast lane, you see that whenever someone is slow on the fast lane, you must know that he or she is on the phone. Mm-hmm. And when you overtake, you see, he's literally WhatsApping, and it is nothing wrong. Even the Metro Police these days, they WhatsApp while driving. I don't know if it's an offense or what, or it's a fashion.
It's an offense.
I don't know.
Of course it's an offense. I mean, not even a Metro Police driver is allowed to SMS while driving. It's a ridiculous thing.
They WhatsApp all the time, and there's nothing you can do about it.
And part of it, Johnny, is, and I think you would sympathise with this as a driver. It's not just that we have rules in the country that need to be enforced. It's also that we have rules in the country that we need to observe as drivers, right?
Yeah.
And we as drivers, we've lost respect for the rule of law. I think that's why we do these things, right?
I mean, a simple indication.
Yes. I'm
indicating that I'm turning.
Yeah.
No, they don't. Just turn. You see what you can do about it. It's not his or her problem. All right, thanks, Chen.
Thanks so much, Johnny, for your call. I empathize, in fact. And the other thing that bugs me is the four-way stops, when the traffic lights stop working and you're at a four-way stop and everybody wants to go first. Right? Everybody knows the rule, right? So whoever gets there first is the first person to take off, second, third, fourth. Just wait your turn. What is so special about you that you need to go when it's not your turn? Hey, what is so special about you? Also, what is so special about you driving in the emergency lane? when an ambulance could be taking someone to hospital or something serious could be happening, and that lane has been reserved for that kind of action, for that person to be taken to a hospital or some other facility, really on short notice. And you are driving in that lane because you need to get home to watch your soapies early, or to have your start your braai 30 seconds earlier than you would have if you had waited your turn like everybody else. And that sense of entitlement on the roads is really something that gets to me. I don't know if it affects you as badly as it affects me, but if it's one thing that makes me spitting mad on the road, it's when I'm waiting in that traffic jam and everybody else is waiting and the guys who are special are using the emergency lane. Tell me what you think about that. Many of you talking about truck movement restrictions as well. Let's listen to these voice notes.
Hi, good morning, Joanne, and good morning to the listeners. I would rather make a suggestion to say that all truck companies should implement the rule of being on the road from 4 to 11. 4 o'clock in the morning until 11 o'clock at night, so that all drivers can rest, at least can have that little time to rest. 4 to 11 is my suggestion.
Good morning, Joanne. This is VA from Rift Valley Extension 20. On the issue of trucks on the road, Joanne, come to N1. You'll see those throttliners, those refrigerators truck. The trucks are supposed to drive at 80 kilometers per hour, but those ones, with the plate numbers of Cape Town, no, they drive at 110, Joanne. When you go to N3, the containers, we are being bullied every day.
Morning, Joanne and the listeners. Bongani, why government is not making a lane for big trucks like area via buses? Because they've just got their lane and then there's no confusion about it. Everyone knows that this is a lane for area via buses. Why government is not doing the same thing for trucks? I don't think it can be much disturbed if you can just do something like that. Just create a lane for the trucks. I think it can be much better. Thank you.
Hello, Joanne. I think that they should make the trucks drive at night, so that it leaves the civilians with children driving mostly in the day. Obviously, the first choice would be that we reinstate the rail, because that's where our biggest problem would be solved. But letting the trucks drive at night. This is Wendy from Neisner.
Joanne, I think people, when they renew their license, they must be tested again. And as for the truck drivers,
Did listen to that one before, but thanks for sending those messages in. I think there are some useful suggestions in there, but I doubt anything is going to change. I think we're going to have to get Transnet to just speed up in terms of its acceleration of getting the railway network up to scratch. There isn't another solution for us. But also then, I do think about the truck drivers and the freight companies, and I wonder what happens. You've invested in this business now, right? You saw a gap in the market. You saw that freight could not easily be carried on the railway lines because they weren't up to scratch. So you invested in a business where you are now transporting freight via road in a truck. And that is your business, and your business is starting to thrive, and you're contributing to the economy. And then all of a sudden, we get our rail network back up to scratch. What happens to all the freight businesses, the road freight businesses that have come into being? There's a lot to think about when these things shift, Let's take a call from Sello in Mokopane on the issue of reckless driving. Hi, Sello.
Joanna, thanks for having me.
Sure.
Joanna, our attitude stinks as a drivers.
Yeah, I agree.
We are, as long as we don't change our attitude towards each other, nothing will happen. We're still going to complain. It is based on respecting other people. And if we don't respect another driver in front of you or behind you or anywhere, Joanne, this problem will continue every day, every year. Most of the time I'm in Polokwane. There's this thing when a robot can close you. or open for you. For example, if the robot open for you,
yes,
and then you can see there's another cars that are blocking the road where other people can cross or move or whatever you want. But because the robot open for me, I'm gonna block that lane so that other people must not move or cross.
Yeah.
So, and I complained to Polokwane municipality to say, guys, you are here just on this road that this thing is happening. No one came. There was a guy I called, and then he said he would look into. Nothing happened. They will block a road, Johan, and then the traffic will be crazy each and every day. So it is all about attitude.
Yeah.
And I hope that we change as people. I hope also we stop texting and calling while we are traveling, unless you are on your Bluetooth. That is better. But texting, that's where the dangerous is most of the time. Johan, thank you.
Thank you so much, Silo in Mokopane. And I was wondering while Silo was speaking whether we can't start a social revolution of some kind, right, with just very small things. We dedicate ourselves to making one change to the way we behave as members of society, right? And it could be anything. This week, it could be the fact that we are making sure that we indicate when we change lanes, or we're making sure that when we approach a four-way stop, we treat it as a four-way stop, the way it should be treated. Or we decide we're not going to drive in the emergency lane unless we're driving an emergency vehicle, right? If we could make one change, and maybe we could just do that, just for 1 week, make one change that we then set in motion that becomes a habit, right, after a few weeks. Every week we just change one thing that puts us in alignment with the rule of law again, in the smallest things. Like they say, be faithful in the small things. And if we can be faithful in the small things, can we start changing the society that we live in by learning to be faithful in the small things? Think about that and tell me what your thoughts are on that. Right now, it is 11:40.
Every leader has a story before the title. This Friday on the Daily Discourse, SABC Group CEO Nomsa Chabeli goes beyond the boardroom to meet a woman leading one of Africa's most recognizable mobility businesses. Ramasela Ganda, Group CEO of Zeda Limited, the company behind Avis and Budget in South Africa and across 10 other countries in sub-Saharan Africa. But this isn't a conversation about cars. It's about leadership, the choices, the sacrifices, the woman behind the title, and the legacy she is building. Her leadership story. Nomsa Chabeli in conversation with Ramasela Ganda. Friday the 28th of August, only on SAFM. Still leading the conversations that move us.
With the ever-changing financial landscape, it can be difficult to make sense of all the moves at times. Join me, Jimmy Moyaha, on the SAFM Market Update with MoneyWeb, Mondays to Thursdays, 6 to 7 p.m, as we break down the key market trends, top financial stories, and smart investment insights, all in one place. It's everything you need to stay financially informed and ahead of the curve.
SAFM.
Why do we have a police protection?
When I took the initiative, therefore, to say, what about communicating with the then Minister of Bantu Education to say, can you explain, what are you trying to achieve? But he decides to send the police to come and arrest me.
South Africa carries the weight of history and the power of possibility. In every township, village, city, in every skyline, in every anthem, there is resilience. South Africa, diverse, powerful, enduring.
This is what we are becoming. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Call SAFM now on 086 000 2032.
Yeah, thanks for your messages on the WhatsApp line. One of you says, hi again, Joanne. I think politicians must use the current public health system. It would serve it as an excellent means test, whether suitable for the electorate they serve. Why are these suggestions always labelled as impractical? Let's make it happen and force the issue as a society that effectively pays for these services, says Naveen in Durban. And one of you is talking about the Eastern Cape being in ICU.
Morning, Joanne and listeners. Pertaining to Eastern Cape, hospitals or ambulances. It's not all about that. The whole Eastern Cape is in an ICU. And in the Northwest, the same. There was a hospital called Tuso. The Northwest Province leadership closed it. Now, last week, there's a place called Swazireneke. A clinic in the township has been closed. The people have to go to the clinic in the Swazireneke hospital. These two provinces are in an ICU. Anonymous.
Excuse the pun, hey, but yeah, I hear you, and the state of hospitals in the Eastern Cape, look, in many places in the country, but I mean it's the coal face, right? You're at the coal face of life and death there, and because you're working in a space that transitions often, and I shouldn't say transitions, but sort of that straddles life and death. This is the place where you see the most desperate people. You see desperation in human beings, and you want to be able to give your fellow human beings some semblance of hope, and yet daily we just watch those lives being lost, and it doesn't move us somehow. Naveen also sent us another message saying, Joanne, how we talk of the food poverty line in one breath and the looting of millions in another. It's clear where the root of poverty lies. Greedy, dishonest people. They need to be contained and brought to order, or poverty will thrive even more, says Naveen. And Naveen, I think you're making a good point about the fact that we're living in a country where we've got enough of a surplus for nobody to go hungry. Our country produces enough food for everybody, but we're not able to channel it and distribute it the right way. And that is one of the most disappointing things.
Morning, Grant. Yeah, just listening to that chap saying we should withdraw from the UN. He obviously doesn't realize we need the UN more than they need us. If anything should happen military-wise from another country, well, our military, as we know, are pretty much non-existent. There's a lot of reasons why we would need the UN. They don't really need us.
All right, I'm going to leave it there for today and wrap up. Of course, we'll have more conversations tomorrow. We're broadcasting live from the GEMS conference tomorrow in Cape Town. So that's where we'll be coming to you from. I'm looking forward to it and to hearing from you tomorrow between 9 and 12 on the Daily Discourse. From the team and me, thank you and take care. We hand over to the book reading, then the fabulous Sakina Kamwendo with Updated Noon.
SAfm presents another episode of the book, The Invisible People, by Putuma Ntleko, read by Simpiwe Kwana. Please note that the views expressed in this book are not that of the station. Listeners' discretion is advised.
African influence on music continues. The blues, then jazz, were structured on African musical foundations of call and response and were often considered to be anti-establishment music. They were among the defining new musical art forms to emerge in the 20th century and spawned directly or indirectly much of what we listen to today. I recall an interesting exchange between legendary composer and producer Quincy Jones and young musician Kendrick Lamar. Discussing Jones' composition Back on the Block, Jones quizzed Lamar on what he thought the origins of rap and hip-hop music were. The Bronx or some inner city? Lamar responded. Jones explained that it was in fact inspired by the praise singing that originated in Africa. Anyone familiar with the Imbongi, the praise singers of a chief or king in Southern Africa, would immediately identify with this. An Imbongi chants, orates, or composes music that narrates a leader's history, as well as their great deeds and virtues, often just before they address a distinguished audience. Although the structure and style of rap and praise singing are similar, rap is not necessarily about singing anyone's praises. This influence can now be felt around the world. The globalization of popular culture, particularly post-World War I, has been driven by America, in particular by the African-American popular music of the last 100 years, including blues, soul, swing, jazz, and more recently, funk, disco, R&B, and hip-hop, just to name a few. This popular culture, which has its foundations primarily in the deprived inner cities of the U.S., has traversed borders and found fans, inspired imitation, and influenced local cultures in many corners of the globe, from conservative Saudi Arabia and the shiny centers of Tokyo, Seoul, and Beijing to rural France. More recently, musical influences come full circle, with genres directly coming from Africa, such as Afrobeats and Amapiano, finding a global audience and worldwide success. Other countries with substantial diasporas inflected their African heritage according to their own taste. Many of the national genres of the Americas show intense African influence, including Jamaican reggae, Brazilian samba, Colombian cumbia, Haitian compa, Puerto Rican reggaeton, Dominican bachata, Cuban salsa, and so on. Many of these also employ the call and response structure. Across the world, Africans and African Americans have been at the cutting edge of popular chic. From cross-pollination to appropriation, art, music, and more generally culture are of course the result of an ever-evolving cross-pollination of different learnings, traditions, and practices over time, ever blending in an increasingly integrated world. While I was watching the coronation of King Charles III on British television, for instance, royal historian and commentator Alistair Bruce explained to viewers that the ritual purification undertaken by the new king in the bonded enclosure in the church, from where he emerged to hold the scepter and the orb, was reminiscent of a pharaonic practice. It is critical that we acknowledge cultural contributions and influences and give credit where credit is due. Failing to do so, instead, appropriating contributions not only diminishes the richness of our cultural diversity, but perpetuates the idea of a civilization pecking order. It robs parts of the world like Africa of their identity, and more prosaically, of intellectual property and monetary gains too. A good example of the way African art has been appropriated and profited from is Damien Hirst's colossal installation at the 2017 Venice Biennale. Hirst, one of the wealthiest artists in the world, featured in this installation a near replica of a Nigerian brass Ife head dating back to the 14th or 15th century, and was accused of failing to properly acknowledge this historical antecedent. This happened to be the first year Nigeria was invited to have a pavilion at the Biennale, but press coverage focused on Hirst. As Victor Ehikameno, a Nigerian artist who was invited to the Biennale, put it, "For the thousands of viewers seeing this for the first time, they won't think Ife. They won't think Nigeria. Instead, their young ones will grow up to know this work as Damien Hirst's. The narrative will shift, and the young Ife or Nigerian contemporary artist will someday be told by a long-nosed critic, 'Your work reminds me of Damien Hirst's Golden Head.'" Africans and people of the African diaspora need to be more aware of how and how much their continent has inspired contemporary Western culture. In this area, no firm distinction can be made between the contribution of the continent and of the diaspora, who have refashioned especially African music with their extraordinary creativity. More generally, acknowledging and reclaiming Africa's contribution to the evolution of humanity and civilization is vitally important to the reconstructive surgery that we need to forge the kind of common identity essential to propel the continent forward. Africans everywhere should know and acknowledge their continents and their diaspora's vast cultural achievements in the ancient and modern world. But what might this reconstructive surgery look like? And what interventions does it require? Chapter 5: Claiming a Common African Identity. In 1965, famed African-American writer and civil rights activist James Baldwin sparred with William F. Buckley, then one of the leading U.S. conservative intellectuals, in a debate organized at the University of Cambridge in the UK. In front of a large, almost entirely white audience, Baldwin and Buckley debated whether the American dream had been achieved at the expense of African Americans. During the debate, Baldwin described how the anti-colonial movements in Africa, as well as the civil rights movement in the United States, were shifting how black people were being perceived. It is only since the Second World War that there has been a counter-image in the world, Baldwin argued. And that image has not come about through any legislation on the part of any American government, but through the fact that Africa was suddenly on the stage of the world, and Africans had to be dealt with in a way they had never been dealt with before. This gave an American Negro for the first time a sense of himself beyond a savage or a clown. By revolting against colonialism and oppression, Africans and African Americans changed not only the way the world perceived them, but also how they perceive their own selves. Why dedicate so much space in this book to the question of history, civilization, religion, and culture? Because, as James Baldwin pointed out during that debate, understanding and highlighting Africa's contribution to today's modern world greatly influences perception of Africa and its past, present, and potential future, not only from the rest of the world, but also from Africans themselves. A confident and strong sense of identity, in turn, is an essential foundation on which to build Africa's future economic trajectory, as well as its role on the global stage. Only once we have acknowledged fundamental and foundational distortions can we deconstruct and reshape the economic and political systems on which they were built. And only by envisioning Africa's past with confidence and clarity can we hope to bring about the future it needs. So, how do we counter entrenched but distorted perceptions built on omissions and erasures, and instead promote narratives and perspectives that highlight and value Africa's rich history and culture, and the great deal they have given to the world? How can Africans, in the words of the former South African President Thabo Mbeki, define for themselves who they are and who they should be? How do we reclaim and strengthen a common African identity? I appreciate the challenges of attempting to shape a common identity. Africa's diverse languages, ethnic groups, and religions make this difficult from the outset. The challenge is therefore to find commonality while accommodating difference. Also, as I argued in Chapter 1, the dislocation and fragmentation resulting from the slave trade and colonization disrupted the emergence of a cohesive African identity for 6 centuries. The reaffirmation of a unified continental sense of self-rooted in our rich history is therefore, despite the difficulties, all the more important. Besides being forged through a shared history and common experience, identity is also shaped through the eyes of others. In a TED Talk about the dangers of perceiving others as only one thing. Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie remembers how she did not see herself as African until she moved to the United States. She came to embrace that identity because people turned to her whenever Africa came up, even though she knew little or nothing of other parts of the continent. When I attended university in the United States, I lost count of the number of times Americans asked me, upon discovering I was South African, whether I knew their friend in Kenya or Ghana. Even though these countries are thousands of kilometers away from one another, Africa in their subconscious mind is invariably shrunk into a tiny monolith. The innocent enquirer is often oblivious to the fact that the African landmass is roughly equivalent to the size of India, the US, China, and Europe combined.
There was another episode of the book The Invisible People by Putuma Ntleko, read by Simpiwe Gwana. The book is available online and in all leading stores countrywide. It is broadcast on SAfm at 11:45 Monday to Thursdays on the Daily Discourse. It is produced for the station by Vovi Patala, technical production Wiseman Mangele, Nanda Koza, and Tato Mapuru.
Stay tuned to SAfm coming up.
Twelve o'clock on Thursday, the 27th of August, 2026. A very warm welcome to Update at Noon here on SAfm. In the conversation, I'm Sakina Kamwendo. Coming up in the next hour,
I established that the family members of personnel in crime intelligence were irregularly appointed in covert environment.
former Hawks head Lieutenant General Godfrey Lebeya is giving testimony at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry, and the commission is looking into criminality and infiltration into the criminal justice system. And
I was not sure that he was abducted. What I knew and what I was told is that he had gone to exile and he was missing between leaving the country and arriving in the camps.
the TRC Cases Inquiry is hearing cross-examination of a former police minister and a former National Commissioner, Bheki Cele. Coming up in sport,
South African men's hockey team finished their Hockey World Cup. I'll bring you details of that. Also, Danny Jordan back in court for fraud.
That's John Chirica. He'll have those details for us just after the bottom half of the hour. Right now, though, let us know what's on your mind. 41391 is the SMS line number. Charge at R1.50 per SMS. You can also get in touch via X at SABC News_radio, or you can send us a WhatsApp voice note on 082-692-3909. All these and more stories coming up on this Thursday edition of Update at Noon. First, though, here's the latest news with Utsile Saku.
Thanks, Sakina. Top stories at 12. Lebeya says O'Sullivan wanted Phala probe update and a double murder in Cape Town. Good afternoon. Retired Hawks head Godfrey Lebeya has told the Madlanga Commission that private investigator Paul O'Sullivan sought an update from him on the investigation into the Phala matter. Lebeya has testified that he refused to provide any information, saying he could not discuss the progress of a probe with a private individual. He further alleged that when O'Sullivan contacted him, he was in the company of Dr. Bejane Chauke, former President Cyril Ramaphosa's political advisor. Lebeya is being led in evidence by advocate Lee Siegels Ngube.
He was asking for the status.
He did not say, but I just felt somebody else is asking me to provide him with the status of the matter that is handled by the Hawks. And he tells me that he is sitting with his friend doctor. They have got nothing to do with that. I can't report to any other person about progress of matters in the DPCI. So I did not ask him your status because I know he's not a lawyer, and I couldn't understand why he will ask me to provide him with the status of the case.
A mother and her son from Scottsdene in Kraaifontein in Cape Town have been shot dead outside their house this morning. Police spokesperson Ndake Gwala says the motive for the attack is unknown at this stage and no arrests have been made.
According to reports, a 43-year-old woman noticed that her 20-year-old son was not home when she woke up. She told her daughter she was going out to look for him, but shortly after that, her daughter heard gunshots. The 43-year-old woman and her 20-year-old son were found outside laying next to each other with gunshot wounds on their upper bodies. They were both declared deceased on the scene by medical personnel.
The case against Zimbabwean British national Ndodana Chuma, who is facing a charge of unlawful possession of a firearm, has been postponed to the 8th of next month in the Johannesburg Magistrates Court. Chuma is wanted in the United Kingdom in connection with the alleged murder of his wife, Zandile, and their two daughters, 15-year-old Natalie and 5-year-old Nala, last month. He was arrested in Kensington, Johannesburg, days later, where he was allegedly found in possession of a firearm. The 45-year-old is also expected to appear in another court in connection with the UK's extradition request. His lawyer, Crispin Michungura, says the parties are negotiating a possible agreement on how the case will proceed.
Your Worship, I would say we are in negotiations to try and reach a 105. My learned friend has gone ahead of us a little bit to say it's already there. It's not yet there. So we are limping towards it. I am yet to consult with him to get final instructions on the bit that is missing. So once that is done, I'll come back to court and confirm.
The South African Freight and Logistics Association and the Road Freight Association have called for an immediate recovery plan for the Durban Gateway Terminal. They say the vessel waiting times have more than doubled since June, with truck delays also rising sharply at the KwaZulu-Natal port. The association has blamed system and equipment failure, warning that costs are being passed to consumers. Kevin Kelly is CEO of the Road Freight Association.
The average cost per day for a truck standing that takes these containers out is roughly between 5,200 and about 8,000 rand, depending on the type of vehicle you've got. So that's what it costs just to stand, because you've got all your overhead costs, your operational costs that stay there. So what you're paying for the truck, your driver's fees, those sorts of things. That's before you add anything else and that could go wrong.
And finally, further afield, Malaysia's former Prime Minister Ismail Sabri Yaakob has pleaded not guilty to a charge of failing to declare his assets under the country's anti-corruption law. Ismail Sabri, who was Malaysia's Prime Minister for just over 15 months from 2021 to 2022, was accused of concealing assets that consisted of local and foreign currencies, as well as gold bars and silver. His defense counsel, Hamza Arshad, said that the charge was essentially a failure to comply with a notice to declare certain assets.
He was charged under Section 36 of the MECC Act. Essentially, it is an offence of not complying with the notice to declare certain assets. In the meantime, we will be studying the charge, and of course, we did inform the court that we are raising certain concerns about the propriety and the legality of the charge. But we will not go into detail. We will definitely do something.
Recapping the top story, retired Hawks head Godfrey Libeya has told the Madlanga Commission that private investigator Paul O'Sullivan sought an update from him on the investigation into the Phala matter. For SAFM News, I'm Utsile Saku. Headlines at 12:30.
Update at noon with Sakina Kamwendo, midday to 1 p.m. Update at noon with Sakina Kamwendo.
Well, a very good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to Update at Noon. It is 7 minutes after 12. Utsile Saku with your back with your headlines at the bottom of the hour. Well, it's been an interesting morning once again at the Madlanga Commission, and the witness today giving testimony is the former Hawks head, Lieutenant General Godfrey Libeya, and it's been quite interesting in terms of what he has already read into the record, because this is where they are at. This is his sworn statement that that he is currently now putting on a record. And of course, the commissioners will then, they do, of course, as they go along, ask for clarity. But then, of course, there will be further interrogation of that. And we will take you there shortly. But some of the other stories that we're watching, TRC cases inquiry, and the former police minister and former National Commissioner Bheki Cele appearing before that commission today. And then the SIU says that its investigation into the South African study visa processes has identified that it is being operated by criminal syndicates. Now, the unit was briefing the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education and Training in relation to both study and work permit issuance. The ad hoc committee investigating allegations of criminal infiltration, corruption and political interference in the criminal justice system, they meeting again virtually to deliberate on their report. And the Black Business Federation, formerly a Federation for Radical Economic Transformation, they will be staging a march today against the Industrial Development Corporation. And they say they want full disclosure of the bank's agreements with the IDC deal and the structure and public clarity on the ownership and control of Tonga Articulate. The inquest looking into the death of Stephen Bantu Biko also continues in the High Court in Gqeberha. And the Gauteng Provincial Legislature's Portfolio Committee on Community Safety is today participating in a community engagement hosted by Gun-Free South Africa in Westbury. And as you know, Westbury being plagued by gangsterism at the moment. And then the bail hearing of the former Tshwane police officer and social media personality, Peter Kakashnonyane, and his wife, whose lawyer, Charlotte Dibana, that is continuing in the Polokwane Magistrates Court, and a few other court cases that we'll also try and bring you up to speed on.
Remember the first time your soul felt alive? Or the last time music moved you so deeply you didn't want it to end? That feeling is calling you back. You're officially invited to come experience soulful performances from global icons Kamasi Washington, Temba and Africam Kize, Nubaya Garcia, Ibrahim Malouf, Judith Supuma, Angelique Kidjo, Ndabo Zulu, Melanie Skolch, Flowetry, Taniswa Mazwai, and 40 world-class acts. 4 incredible stages of the Santon Convention Center. 1 unforgettable experience at the Standard Bank Joy of Jazz, 25th to 26th September. This is Jazz Reignited. Get your weekend pass now via Ticketmaster.
Welcome to the SABC Radio Archives. For over a century, we've passionately captured South Africa's heartbeat, preserving historic moments,
Time for the healing of the wounds has come.
iconic music, and compelling storytelling from all 19 SABC radio stations, ensuring these priceless recordings shape future generations. Explore a century of South African heritage waiting to be rediscovered. Visit the SABC Information Library and Radio Archives online, or call us directly at 011-714-3936 or email lishilosj@sabc.co.za. SABC Libraries and Archives, preserving the past, supporting the present, inspiring the future.
Every leader has a story before the title. This Friday on the Daily Discourse, SABC Group CEO Nomsa Chabeli goes beyond the boardroom to meet a woman leading one of Africa's most recognizable mobility businesses. Ramasela Ganda, Group CEO of Zeda Limited, the company behind Avis and Budget in South Africa and across 10 other countries in sub-Saharan Africa. But this isn't a conversation about cars. It's about leadership, the choices, the sacrifices, the woman behind the title, and the legacy she is building. Her leadership story. Nomsa Chabeli in conversation with Ramasela Ganda. Friday the 28th of August, only on SAFM. Still leading the conversations that move us. Sakina Kamwendo on SAFM.
12 minutes after 12, and let's start with the Madlanga Commission. And as indicated earlier, the former head of the Hawks, Lieutenant General Godfrey Lebeya, is giving testimony.
When he refers to a spade,
And then at paragraph 102, you set out certain interactions you've had with General Mkhwanazi starting in March 2024 and then going up to June 2025 to illustrate that you had a cordial, collegial relationship with him. Correct?
That's correct, Commissioner.
We won't go through all of them. There is one that I do want to refer to. It is the one on the 26th of January 2025. If you could read that one, please. At paragraph 1.2.2.
On 26 January 2025, I sent a request as follows. Good morning, General. I hope that you are well. I would like to have a 5 to 10 minutes talk with you relating to some intervention that may be sought from yourself. Thank you, General. We met as we were all in Durban for Police Day activities, and I provided him with assistance sought from him in connection with the Newcastle case number 408 of 1/2025, where it was alleged that a captain enlisted the services of a hitman to kill a sergeant investigating a case which I also brought to the attention of Lieutenant General Sibia. I must add that I received the information about the challenge in this case from the Minister of Police on 21st of January 2025 and arranged to meet the team in KZN as they were not comfortable with meeting my DPCI team in KZN to hear the concerns.
And the Minister of Police we're referring to there is Minister Mkhunu?
That is correct, Commissioners.
And you had met with him on the 21st of January 2025, or was it a telephone discussion?
It could be the telephone. I'm not very much sure about the physical meeting because the 20th and the 21st, there shall have been also a physical meeting, which I think that Advocate Andrea Johnson may have testified about. I think it's the 20th. Some I find that possibly on the SMS regarding the provision of the information.
And the minister had raised challenges regarding the investigation with you. What was his concern?
Members from KZN shall have approached him regarding assistance in the investigation that they were doing. They needed assistance. And those included taxi-related killings and the like, which I felt that this belonged in the detective service. General Sevilla could be in a better position to deal with that, while there was a view that the Hawks should deal with that. So I was just trying to deal with that so that it doesn't belong in the DPCI, but let me try to understand the concerns of the members. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Then the next interaction is at 102.6. If you can read that.
I sent him the number of Advocate Andrea Johnson of Investigative Directorate Against Corruption, IDEC, as he requested, and confirmed telephonically. He appreciated.
Do you recall when this was?
On the 2nd of June 2020. On the 2nd of June 2025.
The 2nd of June 2025 is where you say he responded to your message and said, "Good morning, General. I wish you well on the next chapter of your life." Was it the same day?
No, I think that I shall have to check my message on the specific date, but I think that is either the 1st or the 2nd.
And did General Mkhwanazi tell you why he wanted Advocate Johnson's number?
No, he did not tell me. I did not ask him. I just felt that this one is a colleague that I know of. There must be reason. Let me not go into asking the reason why he needed the number of the IDEC Hawk. We work closely with them, so I just provided the number. I did not ask why.
Thank you. 103.
I know Lieutenant General Dumisani Samuel Kumalo of Crime Intelligence Head Office, and I also know Major General Mbuso Kumalo, the Deputy Provincial Commissioner, Crime Detection Gauteng, under whose command the Gauteng detectives, including the Gauteng Organized Crime Unit, resort. I have never had any problem with either of the two. None of the two has shared information about possible operation. That would have obviated the need to send the Hawks team. While accepting that the operation was secret, when the team updated Lieutenant General Kumalo about the developments, a telephone call to advise me that his team was conducting an operation could have avoided unnecessary confusion.
And then at 104, you mentioned communication between you and General Kumalo, Dumisani Kumalo, in 2024 and 2025. And then if I could ask you if you could read from the sentence, 7 lines from the bottom that starts, vetting is an area where crime intelligence is receiving 15%. Do you see that sentence?
That's correct, Commissioners.
Yes.
Maybe before you do that, General, in that preceding paragraph where you talk about if the two Kumalos had called you, it would have obviated any confusion. Is there a practice or protocol where whether it's the DPCI or the other units of the SAPS, when they do operations, is there a protocol or practice where you tell each other? Because that suggests, that paragraph left unexplained suggests that this was a deviation. This may well have been a deviation because of secrecy or whatever reason, other reasons, a deviation from either protocol or practice.
It is not every project or every operation that they have to inform the DPCI. It may not be relevant for that other environment. It is only where one knows that this one is relevant. Under normal circumstances, if it was an investigation of murder, it was not necessary to inform the Hawks.
And that which is relevant to the other unit, that communication or coordination, if you like, is it by way of, is it because there is a protocol in place, whether written or agreed? And I ask the question, in fact, as you answer the question, keep this in mind. When Advocate Johnson was testifying and she spoke, I think might have been the first meeting between you and her, or in some context you met, she says, you said something like, stay in your lane. You said that to her, which means do not encroach on my work. I ask again with that, in that context, that is there anything in place that regulates how you cooperate with each other and therefore do not end up straddling onto each other's mandates and operations, in fact?
It's just a general practice that guide collaboration. You don't find in one document. You find all over. I attached some of the documents that I dealt with in 2000, where I was briefing all of the detectives in Gauteng. Among them, you'll find where we talk about collaboration, working relationship between detective and the crime intelligence and the like, all stakeholders. So it's just a practice where it is necessary to involve others that you may collaborate. Like Section 17 capital letter F, will bring in enforce the collaboration, but it's not every action, operation that require all the stakeholders. Otherwise, there will be a waste of time to deal with something that does not require the others. I think that regarding Advocate Johnson staying in the lane, maybe when it comes to dealing with the laws regarding the establishment of ID, IDEC, and those, maybe I can highlight what I was referring to, staying in the lanes.
Maybe let me ask a much more direct question. In this operation that we are talking about here in your paragraph 103, was this the first time or the first time where an operation which is relevant to your mandate, insofar as this is supposed to be an organized crime operation, which is relevant to your mandate, that the SAPS unit, other SAPS unit as happened here, GCI Ops, conducted without informing you that we have this operation, or is this something that happens with some regularity?
Just to clarify that, Commissioner, the operation itself was not necessarily what the Hawks were supposed to do. We found ourselves going there because there is this perception that people say that they are the Hawks members. Otherwise, under normal circumstances, they should have arrived there and verified that no, they are not the Hawks members. They did not pretend to be members of the Hawks, and part ways. It could not have gone any further. The only thing is the accusation that why do you send the members? You are disrupting, you are interfering. That is why it would appear that it seems as if we were saying that that investigation that they were doing was a mandate of the Hawks. It wasn't.
When you say it wasn't the mandate of the Hawks, are you saying there was no need to inform you about it? Maybe let me use a different example. If you didn't get a call from, you say, Malcolm X, to say there are people pretending to be the Hawks, if you hadn't received that call, and these members of the SAPS who are at the property, they conducted their operation and completed it, would you or would you not have a complaint that, but that's an organized crime, that falls within the organized crime definition, we should have been informed as well that you are conducting that kind of operation? I'm trying to get to understand that.
It's correct. I shall not have complained that they are operating on the mandate of the Hawks, because there in the SAPS, they also have got the organized crime component, which was handling that. So if it is organized crime, it's supposed to be organized crime on level 1 and 2. It means it hasn't reached the stage where it needs the Hawks. Under normal circumstances, we wouldn't want that investigation of that case. They can carry on. I still doubt as to whether when they charge everybody, they charge them in terms of the Organized Crime Act, which I think that is the normal crime that they are charging them on, which may be mislabeling of that incident.
Thank you. I am answered. Thank you.
Thank you. General, just want to clarify that when Advocate Johnson was appointed as the IDAC head, there was already a duty arrangement of some sort, as testified by Colonel Rulofse and Captain McLean, that some members of the DPCI were stationed at IDAC. Is that correct?
Just repeat the question, Commissioner.
When Advocate Johnson was appointed as the DPCI, as the IDAC head, there was already a duty arrangement between DPCI and IDAC in place from May 2020, where some of your members were working with IDAC or stationed at IDAC to investigate state capture matters. Is that correct?
It is correct, Commissioners. We seconded the members to ID at the time when the head was still another advocate who was in charge of the ID at that stage, before Advocate Johnson was appointed. She was appointed later when the first advocate resigned. So those members were sent there before Advocate Johnson was appointed as a head of ID, before it becomes IDAC.
Was it Advocate Cronier?
Advocate Cronier, correct, Commissioner.
Thank you. Back to paragraph 104 from the sentence I'd asked you, vetting. Starting with vetting is an area.
Vetting is an area where crime intelligence is achieving 15% of Hawks vetting instead of 100%, as required by Section 17E, Section 2 of the South African Police Service Act. This is an area where the system is dismally failing. Seeking the intervention of the Deputy National Commissioner on the 25th of April 2024 has not helped, as it is common cause that Lieutenant Generals Sibia and Kumalo are not in good terms.
When you say are not in good terms, do you mean at that time when the request was made in April 2024, or what you know now?
At that time when I requested.
Well, let's take a quick break there, bring you up to speed with the latest news headlines. We'll also have some sports news for you, and we'll return you to the Commission. But right now, here's Utsile Saku with your latest headlines.
Thanks, Akina. In the headlines, retired Hawks head Dr. Godfrey Libeya has told the Madlanga Commission that private investigator Paul O'Sullivan sought an update from him on the investigation into the Parapala matter. Gauteng community safety officials are engaging Westbury residents in Johannesburg on measures to address the community's long-standing gun violence crisis. And hundreds of Nepalese soldiers are searching the steep valley lands of the north for people still missing after yesterday's massive flash floods. A full bulletin at 1 o'clock.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
The rand is trading at 15 rand 93 cents to the US dollar, 21 rand 71 to the pound sterling, and 18 rand 60 cents to the euro. The euro currently trading at $1.16, and the dollar's at 158 yen 98. In Brazil, $1 US dollar trading at 5 real 14 cents. In Russia, 84 rubles 50. India, 95 rupees 51. And in China, $1 US dollar is changing hands at 6 yuan 72. Asian markets mixed at closing bell. Japan's Nikkei fell 0.2%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng gave up 0.3%, and mainland China Shanghai Composite rose 1%. India's markets, they extended losses at the close of trade. Now, the JSE is mainly weak at midday as well. The all-share index flat at 116,860. The Industrials 25 index up 0.5%. Financials down 0.1%. The top 10 resources index and the precious metals and mining index have both declined by 0.2%. European markets mainly lower as well. Britain's FTSE 100 is down 0.8%. CAC 40 in France has dropped 0.9%, while Germany's DAX is up 0.2%. And looking at commodity prices, gold is trading at $4,594 per fine ounce. Platinum's at $1,822 per ounce, while the price of Brent crude oil is at $87.45 a barrel.
SAFM Sport with John Gerika.
Well, hello.
How's it?
It's cold, but we'll live.
Yeah, it got chilly. I don't have a VAR story today. I feel quite bad.
Ah.
Hey?
What's wrong with you?
First time in 3 weeks. Well, I'm waiting for the dust to settle a little bit after those statements.
You could have
from a
found
couple of days ago.
something.
Oh, there's not
You
much
could have
from-
found the prices. I'm joking.
I'm going to tell you a dance story there. That's not going away. Let's talk hockey first. South African men's hockey side beaten 1-0 by Ireland this morning. South Africa finished 14th at the Hockey World Cup. Women's team meet Pakistan for 11th place tomorrow afternoon. That game starts at 12:30. It looks, Sakina, almost as if after the first 4 rounds of the Premiership that the picture is kind of painting itself already. I mean, we kind of know what the outline
You
looks
don't think
like.
it's too soon?
No, I'm being a little bit brave here. I'm not saying the order is correct, but the top 3, Pirates, Sundowns, Chiefs. Amazulu in there a little bit.
Yeah. It's early days.
I kind of feel as if the rest are going to be playing for 4th at the moment. But Chiefs fans will all be holding thumbs for a 3rd place.
I watched the match last night, and I shall reserve my comment.
Let's hear from Sundowns, though. They thrashed, I would say thrashed. They scored 5 goals, 7 goals in the night. Amazulu put up a fight. Sundowns 5, Amazulu 2. Here's Coach Miguel Cordoza.
Absolutely extraordinary. It's important that when you look for Sundowns, start to look the bright side of the moon, because people look at Sundowns and usually just look at the dark side of the moon. Dark side of the moon is a beautiful watch from Amiga. Go there and watch that watch. I love it. It's so beautiful. Bright side of the moon, the way you look at Sundowns, is respect for my players.
Loving
The bright
his team.
side of the moon.
Let's go to court. SAFA boss Danny O'Don returned to court today in relation to the accusation of using more than 1.3 million rand of SAFA money for his personal benefit. Case dates back to 2017 and 2019. He appeared alongside former SAFA Chief Financial Officer Grani Hluyo, former acting CEO Russell Paul, Public Relations Specialist Trevor Nettling and his company Grit Communications. The accused have denied the allegations. Let's go to FIFA now. It turns out that UEFA's threatened boycott of FIFA competitions may have been a little more than a waste of time. European football's governing bodies expected to withdraw its threat to boycott FIFA tournaments after the controversial plan of bringing private investment into the World Cup was shelved. UEFA has warned that no European national teams would play in FIFA competitions while that proposal remained alive. With the plan now abandoned, UEFA appears satisfied the threat to private investors taking stakes in FIFA's biggest event is off the table. So after all the fury and threats, football's biggest power struggles appears to have ended, UEFA getting what it wanted and the boycott threat going nowhere. League Cup today, last of the second round matches tonight. Chelsea take on Luton at 8:30. The winners advance to the next round with Fulham against AFC Wimbledon. West Ham will be the next for the winners after last night's draw. West Ham will beat Fulham or AFC Wimbledon. The second test on the go in Colombo. This is why we love test cricket, right? India scoring 503 for 9. Took them a little while and then bundled Sri Lanka out for 290. Foregone conclusion, right? Sri Lanka currently 399 for 8. They're batting so slowly, playing for the draw. They're in the third session. Sri Lanka lead by 186 runs. Sri Lanka are going to pull off a draw.
Is it day 5?
Third session of day 5.
Okay.
They're going to pull off a draw here. Fantastic batting by the bottom order by Sri Lanka. And Rayner's delayed play, surprise, surprise, in England for the second test against Pakistan. England won the first test by an innings at 103 runs. That one took just 3 days. In tennis news, the US Open mixed doubles is finished already. Remember, they moved it early in an attempt to get more fans there. While Karolina Muchova and Jakub Mensik saved 2 match points. They won the $1 million prize as well. Mensik hit a big ace in the third championship point to steal a 6-3, 1-6, 10-6 win in the final against Belinda Bencic and Flavio Caboli. Meanwhile, Lloyd Harris meets Pablo Lamas Ruiz in the second round of qualifying for the US Open men's singles this evening. South African will feel confident he's beaten Ruiz in both their previous matchups that happened this year. And cycling today, it's a fun stage, 178 kilometers for the Vuelta. There's a dirt road during the final climb. Flat run into the finish. Picking a winner for this one is going to be a challenge. Good luck to you. Pogacar leads by 3 minutes and 21 seconds. And there's also athletics tonight in Zurich. The Diamond League continues. Only one South African in action. Sinasipo Dambile is in the men's 200 meters.
Righty, and go find a VAR story, please.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Hurry! Get supersized savings at Spar for 4 days only. Get 3 kg Omo Auto Washing Powder, 2 litre liquid, or 20 capsules for 109.99. Save 40 Rand. Or 750ml Sunlight Original Dishwashing Liquid Bottle, Handy Andy Cream, and Domestos Thick Bleach. All 3 for 85. Save 18 Rand. Prices valid from 27 till 30 August. While stocks last. Max 5 deals per product per customer. Only at Spar. T's and C's apply.
Running a truck fleet business in this economy is tough. Fuel, maintenance, staff, the costs never stop. That's why I switched to My Way Business Insurance. Now I save up to 20% on my insurance premiums every month. These savings go a long way to keeping my fleet on the move.
Switch to My Way Business Insurance and save up to 20% on your trucks and buses. Real businesses, real savings. Call us on 0860 646464 for a quote today. My Way is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. Standard rates and T's and C's apply.
For 90 years, South Africa has changed. Governments have changed. Generations have changed. Technology has changed. But through it all, one thing has remained. The conversation. From the voices of yesterday.
This morning to me, well, it took 8 attempts, but the Big Easy finally did it. South Africa's Ernie Els finally recorded his first win.
And it's just a month and a half until the start of the World Summit in Johannesburg. Now, most people are aware of the summit's goals.
The other thing that I wanted to mention is the fact that she has really paid a very big price for taking up music. Because what happened is that she left her daughter, one and only daughter.
You're listening to SAFM 104 to 107, and it's time for our music documentary series, The Music Makers. What is it all about?
To the voices shaping tomorrow. This August, SAFM celebrates 90 years of conversation. A nation's story, our shared future. SAFM turns 90 from 1 August. SAFM, the conversation continues.